Chapter 100. I don't really need that much. Chu Bei shook his head with a smile as he met the gazes of Jixingxian, Medusa, and the others. Boss Chu, just name a price, Jixingxian said impatiently. 100 million. Chu Bei stretched out a finger in an unhurried manner. This was also the upper limit of what he could sell today. Chu Bei then turned to Medusa and added, unlike the past, I've prepared a one-time item for all of you, so there's a time limit. As long as I can solve the problem at hand, it doesn't matter if it's a one-time item or not. Medusa's voice was calm as she tossed a storage ring over. Chu Bei smiled knowingly and didn't say anything else. He waved his sleeve, and an 8th-grade golden disc appeared. Although it was also an 8th-grade wheel, Chu Bei had chosen a one-time item, so the value of the item was higher than that of a permanent item. The system has received 1 million willpower. The host has received 500,000 willpower. The host has reached the upper limit of what he can sell today. After the golden wheel swallowed all of the wealth in Medusa's storage ring, the silver needle began to spin rapidly. Ding, ding, ding. Under the astonished gazes of Wu Qian, wild geese fall to heaven, and Mulan, 50 square boxes flew out from the wheel one after another before finally lining up in an orderly manner. What are they doing? Mulan and the other two elders looked at each other with confusion on their faces. Boom. Just as Wu Qian and the others were perplexed, the 50 square boxes exploded at the same time. Among them, 49 were thank you rewards. The only thing that came out was a square box. Inside it was a red bow and a white arrow that matched it. The body of the red bow was engraved with mysterious patterns, each of which shone with a demonic light. Medusa let out a long sigh as she looked at the 49 thank you for your patronage. The winning rate was simply too low. After calming down, Medusa looked at Chu Bei politely and asked, Boss Chu, can this bow and arrow really solve our current predicament? It's right in front of you. Why don't you try holding it? Chu Bei pointed at the red longbow. In his original plan, if Medusa couldn't get anything, then he would help to get rid of Wu Qian and the others. In any case, the purpose of Medusa and the others' transaction was to resolve the Empire's crisis, not to mention that they had already reached the upper limit of today's transaction. Of course, he also thought of leaving Wu Qian and the others until the next day to deal with them. This way, he could still continue to make deals. However, he couldn't bring himself to make a fortune in 2 consecutive days. Unexpectedly, Medusa had actually obtained one of the 10 great divine artifacts of the primordial world, the Hoi Bao. Although this was a weakened version, it was more than enough to deal with Wu Qian and the others. At this moment, Medusa also held the Hoi Bao. The moment Medusa held it, she could feel the extraordinariness of this longbow. First, an indescribable coldness spread throughout her body, followed by a warm current that filled her limbs and bones. Under these two completely opposite energies, the injuries from the soul-devouring blade recovered at a terrifying speed. When these two energies disappeared, Medusa suddenly realized that she had recovered. Buzz. With a trembling sound, the white arrow not far away seemed to have been summoned, and as if it had a mind of its own, it knocked the longbow. Feeling the special material of the arrow, Medusa tried to draw the bow. The moment she drew the bow, the longbow and arrow released a blood-red light at the same time. This light quickly enveloped Medusa, even causing her aura to change. She couldn't feel any battle aura fluctuations. At this moment, Medusa seemed to have become one with the bow and arrow, becoming a part of it. Medusa also thoroughly felt the power of this bow. The latter seemed to have its own consciousness, and she was now able to communicate with this consciousness and even control it. Boss Chu, what grade is this item? Jixingxian couldn't help but ask. Hypedon and the Dharma Mammoth were also curious. Although this was a grade 8 wheel, it didn't necessarily have to be grade 8 items. It was more likely to be grade 7 or even grade 6. It's the highest grade among grade 8 goods. Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. If this wasn't a weakened version of the Hoi Bao, even if it was a one-time consumable, it wouldn't appear on a grade 8 wheel. When Wu Gan, who was not far away, saw the longbow in Medusa's hand, his hands had already quickly formed a strange seal. Although the power of his opponent's bow and arrow was average, his intuition told him that he couldn't underestimate this bow and arrow. Because of this, He didn't hesitate to swallow a grade 7 pill during the process of forming the seal, increasing his strength by a bit. Soon, the black curved blade appeared again. Compared to before, the Soul Devourer blade was wider this time, and its aura was even more frightening. Die! Once the Soul Devourer blade formed, Wu Qian attacked without hesitation. Facing the Soul Devourer blade again, Medusa, with the Hoi Bao in hand, was clearly much more relaxed. There wasn't a trace of worry on her face. She slowly released her right hand that was holding the arrow. Whoosh! The white arrow left the bow. In an instant, it pierced through the void and appeared in front of the Soul Devourer blade. It was so fast that it couldn't be seen. Bang! There was an explosion. Before Jixingxian, Hype Dawn, and the others could react, the white arrow had already pierced through the Soul Devourer blade and continued to shoot toward Wu Qian. As for the pierced Soul Devourer blade, it was as if its energy source had been sucked out. Chapter 101. That's great. The Great Elder of the Soul Sect is dead. What kind of Bao is that? It's so powerful. Didn't you see that it came from the box? What's the saying? Anything produced by Boss Chu must be of the highest quality. On the battlefield at the left peak, the cultivators of the Kama Empire were overjoyed. On the other hand, the cultivators of the three empires were the exact opposite. Each and every one of them had an extremely ugly expression on their faces. According to what they knew, the Great Elder of the Soul Sect was a 6-star Dozong. Yet, such a powerful person was killed by a single arrow. On the battlefield, after Medusa killed Wu Qian with a single arrow, she tilted her head and looked at the three Mulan elders. With a thought, the white arrow changed its direction and shot toward the three Mulan elders. Seeing the arrow flying toward them, the three Mulan elders immediately regained their senses and a trace of fear emerged on their faces. Without much time to think, the three of them shouted at the same time. Green, red, and blue-colored vigorous Do Qi surged out from their bodies. Even a 6-star Dozong, Wu Qian, was killed by the arrow. Naturally, they didn't dare to underestimate the arrow. The three of them attacked with their strongest joint defense. With a buzzing sound, a shield made of 3 intertwined colors appeared under their control and faced the white arrow. Gotcha! However, the strongest joint defense of the three Mulan elders was as weak as paper in front of the arrow and was instantly penetrated. No, don't! Seeing the white arrow appear in front of them in an instant, the three Mulan elders' eyes widened. They couldn't dodge it. The arrow was too fast. At this moment, they personally experienced the fear Wu Qian felt before he died. However, just as the white arrow was about to pierce through the three Mulan elders, a large amount of black fog suddenly surged out in front of the three Mulan elders. With the appearance of the black fog, the temperature of the battlefield instantly dropped and became bone-chillingly cold. A large hand that couldn't be seen clearly stretched out from the black fog. With a chi sound, it cut through the air and directly grabbed the white arrow. Chi. The energy of the white arrow attacked the large hand in the black fog. Under countless shocked gazes, the terrifying energy contained within the two began to collide. Waves of energy rippled out from the center of the two, tearing apart the void with a buzzing sound. This stalemate lasted for a few seconds. Finally, after a low shout came from the black fog, the stalemate was broken. The power of the giant hand that reached out from the black mist increased once again. Then, it forcefully twisted the white arrow, causing it to turn around and shoot towards Medusa. Fortunately, the arrow was still under Medusa's control and stopped 10 meters away from her. You killed Wu Qian. Within the black fog, 2 blood-red eyes appeared and stared coldly at Medusa. As the hoarse and cold voice fell, the black fog quickly condensed, and a stooped old man walked out. Thank you, sect leader, for saving my life. Seeing the sudden appearance of the stooped old man, Mulan and the other two were stunned at first. Then, they bowed in unison. The appearance of the stooped old man changed the look of the dying wild geese fall to heaven. His expression of joy was as though he had found his savior. The stooped old man was the sect leader of the Black Soul sect that they had met a few times before. Queen Medusa's arrow was blocked. Who is that? Could he be the sect leader of the Black Soul sect that hasn't shown himself yet? In the Left Soul battlefield, the cultivators of the Kama Empire stared blankly at the stooped old man who had suddenly appeared. Then, when they looked at Medusa again, there was a little bit of worry in their eyes. When they looked at the experts of the three empires, the previous solemn look on their faces had disappeared. Although they hadn't seen the sect leader of the Black Soul sect, they had witnessed the scene just now with their own eyes. At least from the previous exchange, the stooped old man had forcibly changed the trajectory of the white arrow and gained the upper hand. He finally appeared. Jixingxian narrowed his eyes and stared at the stooped old man, a mere serpent man. The stooped old man stared at Medusa with an expressionless face. "I'll make you pay for Wu Qian's death 100-fold. After saying that, the stooped old man's blood-red eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. With a wave of his sleeve, a pitch-black chain extended from his palm and coiled around like a poisonous snake. Chi. The stooped old man threw out the chain. The chain carried a strange flickering rune and surged with a fighting aura that was far stronger than Wu Qian's. Medusa let out a soft cry. There wasn't the slightest trace of fear on her delicate and beautiful face. She drew her bow again and shot an arrow. In an instant, the arrow and the chain collided. Amidst the deafening vibrations, the chain won. After hitting the white arrow, it continued to pierce toward Medusa. It can't do anything to him? I'm afraid he has already stepped into the ranks of 9 stars Dozong. Jixingxian and Hypedon looked at each other and spoke one after another. He's too ruthless. Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. The weakened version of the Hui Bao could probably kill a 7-star Dozong. If it wanted to pose a threat to a 9 stars Dozong, it was still lacking. Boss Chu, shouldn't I hand this person over to you? Medusa looked at Chu Bei. After saying that, she pointed at the Hui Bao and added, "Or, give me a more powerful one." Chu Bei smiled. With a step, he had already appeared in front of Medusa. Chu Bei clenched his right fist as he looked at the iron chain that was swinging towards him with a terrifying aura. The moment he clenched his fist, the energy of heaven and earth in the entire Black Mountain stronghold began to riot. The surging energy was like a torrential river as it rushed toward Chu Bei's right fist. In just a moment, Chu Bei's right fist seemed to have turned into a scorching sun, releasing a dazzling and glaring divine radiance. Chu Bei threw a punch. The glaring radiance converged into a silver energy beam with a diameter of tens of meters. Rumble. The energy beam met the pitch-black chain head-on. In an instant, the chain annihilated the latter as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Feeling the terrifying aura of the light beam that continued to bombard him, the hunchbacked old man's body suddenly trembled and his expression changed drastically. But before he could do anything, the energy beam had already covered him. Immediately, the hunchbacked old man let out a mournful scream. Under countless gazes, the hunchbacked old man painfully struggled in the energy beam. But he only lasted for a few seconds before his figure dissipated. Then, the energy beam dissipated. The air was silent. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone present had witnessed the whole process, they would have thought that the sect master of the Soul sect had never been here. The sect master of the Soul sect is dead? How could this be? Where did that person come from? The Kama Empire actually hid such a terrifying person. On the battlefield of the left peak, the expressions of the experts of the three empires, who had been overjoyed by the arrival of the hunchbacked old man, changed again. Their faces were filled with disbelief. They weren't the only ones. Mulan, the three elders, and the wild geese fall to heaven were also unable to accept this result. The mysterious sect master of the Soul sect, a dignified 9 stars Dozong, was killed by an unknown expert the moment he appeared. Medusa, Jixingxian, and the others weren't too surprised by the hunchbacked old man's defeat. What shocked them was that the other party had died so quickly. Immediately, Medusa, Jixingxian, and the others looked at Chu Bei with even more respect. Chapter 102. I don't think I need to do anything for the others. Chu Bei glanced at Medusa and Jixingxian. He opened his right fist and slowly brought it down. This punch was one of the moves with the strongest offensive and killing power among the level 8 consumable items that he had exchanged for with his willpower. It was called One Punch Man, One Punch Divine Might. Even 9 stars Dozun would only need one punch to kill anyone below Dozun. There's no need to trouble Boss Chu with the rest of them. I can handle them. After saying that, Medusa looked at the 3 Mulan elders, and the wild geese fall to heaven. She immediately pulled back the Hoi bow and shot out a white arrow. This time, there were no accidents. The arrow killed the 3 Mulan elders, and the wild geese fall to heaven. Seeing their leaders die one after another, the other elites of the 3 empires no longer had the will to fight. They all stopped fighting and fled. Don't leave a single invader alive. Jixingxian gave the order. Then, he and Hypedon took the lead and killed the elites of the 3 empires. At the same time, the situation on the battlefield on the right peak was set due to the addition of firearms. 2 hours later, the soldiers and elites of the Kama Empire began to clean up the 2 battlefields. Boss Chu, it's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. On the city wall, Jixingxian led the Jiama Emperor and early in the night to bow to Chu Bei. The person in front of them had resolved the crisis of the empire by himself. Not only was he the benefactor of the royal family, but he was also the benefactor of the hundreds of millions of people in the Kama Empire. Medusa stood at the side. After killing the wild geese fall to heaven, the Hoi bow and arrow in her hand turned into a rain of light and scattered. Money makes the world go round. You don't need to thank me. Chu Bei said calmly. Boss Chu, have you heard of the Soul Divine sect before? Jixingxian seemed to have thought of something and promptly asked. He knew a lot about the Chuyan Empire, but he had never heard of a power called the Soul Sect. A faction with 9 stars Dozong should not be unknown to anyone. Chu Bei clearly saw Jixingxian's worry and said, this so-called Soul Divine sect is nothing more than a small branch of a force. As for the forces I mentioned, they are far from what you can deal with. It's fine if you don't understand. Seeing that Chu Bei didn't intend to say anything, Jixingxian didn't pursue the matter, but his expression became extremely solemn. You don't have to worry too much. Since I've settled down in your Kama Empire, I won't just stand by and watch if that day comes, Chu Bei added. Thank you, Boss Chu. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Jixingxian's expression visibly eased, and he hurriedly bowed to express his thanks. Jixingxian, remember your promise to me, Medusa said coldly. If it weren't for your majesty, my Kama Empire wouldn't have been able to hold on until Boss Chu arrived. Jixingxian cupped his fists toward Medusa with a grateful expression. Not only will I provide the northeast region for your Naga tribe to thrive, but I will also write our friendly alliance into the national register. Medusa responded softly and nodded in satisfaction. Chu Bei used his free time to fly to a place where there was no one at the left peak. Then, he began to exchange his cultivation. Using firearms and the Hoi Bao, Chu Bei obtained 1 million willpower points. Currently, he had a total of 1,300,000 willpower points. For a Do Huang to exchange 1 star of cultivation, he needed 500,000 willpower points. Currently, Chu Bei's cultivation was at 9 stars of Do Huang. If he wanted to break through to Do Zong, he would need 1 million willpower points. The amount of willpower points needed is increasing. Chu Bei couldn't help but sigh. Then, he directly used 1 million willpower points. Host successfully exchanged cultivation. At the same time the system's voice sounded, the entire mountain shook. Rich energy seeped out from the heavens and earth and continuously surged into Chu Bei's body. Looking from afar, the continuous left peak seemed to be wrapped in a colorful and violent energy. It was especially spectacular. This unforeseen event naturally attracted the attention of Medusa, Jixingxian, and the others on the city wall. Countless gazes were cast toward the left peak at the same time. Looking at the violent energy above the peak and the terrifying energy pressure that permeated the air, their faces were filled with astonishment. This aura, someone is breaking through to Do Zong. Medusa's gaze focused. Who could it be? Jixingxian and Hypedon looked at each other. Could it be a mysterious expert living in seclusion here? The Dharma Mammoth guessed. They really couldn't think of anyone in the Empire who could break through to Do Zong here. Let's go and take a look. Jixingxian said. However, just as he was about to move, the violent energy above the left peak suddenly disappeared. Everything returned to normal. Why was it only a few seconds? Looking in the direction of the left peak, Medusa's eyes flashed with surprise. Even if one failed to break through to Do Zong from the peak of Do Huang, the energy fluctuation between the heavens and earth shouldn't have lasted only a few seconds. In the next moment, Medusa's figure flashed and went straight to the sky above the left peak. However, when she released her divine sense, she couldn't find anyone.
How strange.
Jixingxian and Hypedon also appeared beside Medusa. They also couldn't see anyone. When Medusa and the others couldn't find anything, they returned to the city wall. At this moment, Chu Bei walked over with a smile. Boss Chu, did you notice the violent energy fluctuation just now? Jixingxian asked curiously. The man in red let out a long breath and said, "The three empires have lost, and the Kama Empire has won." Hearing the man in red's words, Yunshan's expression changed, and he immediately got up from his seat. What happened? Yunshan immediately asked. Not only Yunshan, but Yun and the other elders were also surprised. Even though the Kama Empire had the help of the Naga tribe, compared to the three empires, especially with the help of the Soul Ancestor, the gap between the two was still huge. Logically speaking, it was already very difficult for the Kama Empire to maintain the stalemate, let alone win. The merchant who killed the Great Elder has returned. He's the one who helped the Kama Empire win. The man in red quickly said, "Boss Chu?" Yun was astonished. Wild geese fall to heaven. The three elders Mulan and the sect master of the Soul Ancestor were all no match for him. Yunshan's expression was very ugly. They're all dead. The man in red respectfully replied, "Master, Boss Chu is not someone we can provoke. Listen to your disciples' advice. You should let the two girls go." Yun advised with a worried face. "Impossible." Yunshan glanced at Yun and snorted, "I'm not his match, but there will be others who will deal with him. If he dares to come, Misty Cloud Mountain will be his burial ground." It was evening. High in the sky, several figures flew from a distance and hovered above Misty Cloud Mountain. These figures included Medusa, Jixingxian, Hypedon, Fama, Yume, and 90% of the Empire's experts and above. These experts also participated in the previous Left Peak War and defended the Kama Empire. At this time, Chu Bei had already appeared on the mountainside of Misty Cloud Mountain. Through the system's observation hockey, Chu Bei quickly locked the position of the little doctor and Qing Lin. In a flash, Chu Bei appeared in front of a loft. Bang! Majestic and turbulent Do Qi poured out of Chu Bei's body and directly smashed the door of the loft, sending wood chips flying. "Who are you?" Accompanied by hurried footsteps, 6 men wearing Yunlan sect robes with long swords on their waists ran out of the inner room after hearing the movement. When they saw Chu Bei, they pulled out their long swords and looked vigilant. Chu Bei didn't look at the 6 people and directly raised his hand, and the fierce energy cut the 6 men like wind blades. With a burst of shrill screams, the 6 men fell down one after another, and blood flowed like a river. "Boss, how did you know we were here?" In the inner room of the loft, the little doctor and Qing Lin, who were bound by chains, were first stunned after seeing Chu Bei, and then their faces were full of joy. "I'm not a competent boss, and I've made you suffer." Chu Bei easily crushed the chains on the 2 women and made a sigh, with an apologetic look in his eyes. "Boss, we have to get out of here quickly. From the conversation of the people guarding us, I heard that the reason they captured me was to lure you here." Little Doctor seemed to have thought of something and quickly supported Qing Lin and wanted to pull Chu Bei away. "Since we're already here, how can we just leave like this?" Chu Bei's lips curled up. With one hand holding the little doctor and the other holding Qing Lin, he flew out of the loft. At the same time, on Misty Cloud Mountain, more and more disciples noticed Medusa, Jixingxian, and the others. One by one, they raised their heads and looked up, their faces full of astonishment. "Look at the sky. Who are they?" "Battle Chi Wings. They're all experts above the King Realm. There are even some who can stand in the air. Why did so many experts suddenly come to our sect? Are they here as guests?" The Yunlan sect disciples looked at Medusa and the others in the sky and discussed animatedly. Brother Jia, I heard that you've won on the front line and defeated the three empires. Congratulations. At this moment, a majestic battle chi shot up to the sky from the peak of Misty Cloud Mountain. Immediately after, a figure flew out from a large hall, and his loud voice carried a hint of laughter. The figure was very fast as he walked in the air. Every time his feet landed, a circle of ripples would appear in the air. Within a few breaths, the figure appeared in front of Jixingxian. Chapter 104. It's the old sect leader. He broke through to the Dozong realm. The Yunlan sect disciples below immediately recognized Yunshan. When they saw him walking in the air, they exclaimed excitedly, Yunshan, do you know that you're in big trouble now? Jia Xingtian looked at Yunshan expressionlessly. There was no trace of a good expression on his face. Previously, when the Kama Empire was besieged by the three empires and was at a disadvantage, he had visited Yunshan many times, hoping to seek his help. However, the other party had rejected him without hesitation. Brother Jiao, what do you mean? I haven't even left the sect. How did I get into trouble? Yunshan sneered. You should explain it to Boss Chu later, Jixingxian said coldly. So that's what you're talking about. Yunshan had an epiphany. A ruthless look flashed across his eyes as he said, Kill Yunlong. I was afraid that he wouldn't come. I'm here. What can you do to me? Just as Yunshan finished speaking, a calm voice sounded from the mountainside of Misty Cloud Mountain and drifted into the air. Immediately, three figures flew out. They were Chu Bei, Qing Lin, and Little Doctor. Who is he? He doesn't use battle chi wings and can walk in the air. He's a Dozong. He looks so young. I'm afraid he's an old monster who has regained his youth. Judging from his conversation with the old sect leader, he doesn't seem to have good intentions. On Misty Cloud Mountain, the disciples' gazes landed on Chu Bei as they discussed intensely. You're the one who killed Yunlong. Yunshan and Chu Bei looked at each other with gloomy expressions. Chu Bei shrugged and nodded in response. You actually found these two girls so quickly. If it weren't for Yun protecting them, you would be looking at their corpses right now, Yunshan said as he glanced at the Little Doctor and Qing Lin. Upon hearing Yunshan's words, Chu Bei's playful expression instantly turned cold. Noticing the killing intent in Chu Bei's eyes, Yunshan immediately raised his aura to the maximum. His face was full of vigilance, and he was ready to attack at any time. Chu Bei's figure moved. With a single step, he was already less than 10 meters away from Yunshan. He stretched out his right hand, and three different colored flames quickly intertwined in his palm to form a three-colored fire lotus. After his cultivation had broken through to the Dozong class, he was shocked to find that the system had actually given him the right to use the heavenly flame at any time. Moreover, perhaps it was because of the system, the fusion of these three deviant fires was effortless in his hands. I didn't expect Boss Chu to cultivate a fire-type technique, but why do I feel that the flames he released are a little unusual? Looking at the three-colored fire lotus spinning in Chu Bei's hand, Jixingxian and Hypedon spoke one after another. Heavenly flame. They are all heavenly flames. As the president of the Alchemist Guild in the capital, the Dharma Mammoth was first stunned when he saw the three-colored fire lotus, then his eyes widened. He exclaimed with a face full of disbelief, and his eyes were filled with shock. What? Heavenly flame. Jixingxian and Hypedon looked at the Dharma Mammoth at the same time, and they couldn't remain calm. Definitely, it is a heavenly flame. The Dharma Mammoth took a deep breath and said, The heavenly flame is something that all alchemists dream of. To be able to obtain one is already extremely lucky. Unexpectedly, Boss Chu has three heavenly flames in his body at the same time. Moreover, as far as I know, because the heavenly flames repel each other, it is almost impossible for them to exist in the same person's body. But not only did Boss Chu do it, he even merged them. At this point, the Dharma Mammoth's face was filled with admiration and respect for Chu Bei. Among the three heavenly flames, one of them is the molten green lotus fire, which he obtained from a trade with me. Medusa's lips moved slightly. As for the other two heavenly flames, I don't know. Yun Shan's gaze stared intently at the three-colored fire lotus in Chu Bei's palm. After sensing the frightening energy contained within it, a deep green-colored doqi swiftly wrapped around his body like a liquid. At the same time, he quickly retreated to distance himself from Chu Bei. Great sorrow wind-ripping hand. Soon after, Yun Shan let out a loud cry and agglomerated all of his doqi on his palm. Immediately, Yun Shan's palm emitted a bright light. A large energy hand that was dozens of feet large was agglomerated and formed. It carried a ferocious wind as it violently slammed towards Chu Bei. Almost at the same time, the three-colored fire lotus in Chu Bei's palm was thrown out, and it quickly grew bigger. Boom! The two collided, and an earth-shattering sound shook the entire misty cloud mountain. However, just when everyone thought that the two energies would reach a stalemate, the three-colored fire lotus turned into a three-colored sea of fire and swallowed the huge energy hand in an instant. In the next moment, under countless shocked gazes, the three-colored sea of fire covered Yun Shan. Sizzle, sizzle. In the three-colored sea of fire, the battle energy armor on Yun Shan's body only lasted for a few seconds before it was burned into nothingness. Then, Yun Shan's twisted expression and painful screams could be heard. After a few more seconds, the resentful Yun Shan let out a roar that was filled with monstrous killing intent. Then, the blood essence in Yun Shan's body seeped out and burned fiercely, enveloping him and shooting into the sky. Although Yun Shan successfully escaped from the three-colored sea of fire in the end, his body was covered in blood and his aura was weak. He was in an extremely sorry state. Obviously, the escape technique Yun Shan used just now had consumed a large amount of his blood essence. The old sect leader is injured. When the Yunlan sect disciples below saw Yun Shan's miserable state, their faces were extremely ugly. Is that all you've got? On the battlefield, Chu Bei waved his hand, and the three-colored sea of fire disappeared. His eyes were full of disdain as he looked at Yun Shan. Yun Shan stared at Chu Bei. Since I dared to force you to come, I won't let you leave alive. As soon as Cold in the Forest finished speaking, Yun Shan took out a black candle wrapped in runes from his storage ring and lit it. Brother Jia, look at that candle. Hypedon pointed at the burning black candle in Yun Shan's hand and focused his eyes. No wonder he didn't want to help us. So they're in cahoots with the Soul Sect. Jixingxian clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger. The candle that Yun Shan lit was exactly the same as the one that Wu Qian lit before his death to summon the sect leader of the Soul Sect. Is he asking for help from the Soul Sect? Medusa murmured with her eyes half closed. As the black candle burned, countless birds in the originally quiet depths of Misty Cloud Mountain let out frightened squeaks and then spread their wings to fly away. Rolling black mist rose and a black shadow flew out from it. Yun Shan, why did you wake me up? The black shadow's hoarse voice floated in the air. It's really someone from the Soul Sect. This guy really deserves to die. Seeing the black mist surging around the black shadow, Jixingxian, Hypedon, and the others were even more certain of the black shadow's identity. Protector Wu, I want you to help me kill someone. Yun Shan pointed at Chu Bei with monstrous killing intent. As you wish. The black shadow was expressionless. After the 4 hoarse syllables fell, he looked at Chu Bei. Sensing the fluctuation of the black shadow's aura, Chu Bei couldn't help but smile. A 5-star Dozong whose cultivation was inferior to Wu Qian's when he was killed by the Hoi Bao had become Yun Shan's trump card to kill Chu Bei. The disciples of the Yunlan sect who had witnessed the entire process muttered to themselves as they watched Yun Shan turn into a rain of light and dissipate. All of them were dazed, as if they were unwilling to accept this result. Sect Master Yun, I will kill those who deserve to be killed. I hope that you can manage the Yunlan sect well in the future. Chu Bei put away the Hoi Bao and walked in front of Yun Yun. His voice was calm as he spoke. From what Yun Shan had said, if it weren't for Yun Yun, Little Doctor and Qing Lin would most likely have met with misfortune. Yun Yun glanced at Chu Bei. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. In the end, she sighed, shook her head, and flew down. What should be dealt with has been dealt with. It's time to go back. Chu Bei waved goodbye to Medusa, Jixingxian, and the others. Then, he left with Qing Lin and Little Doctor. The next day, a statue was erected in the central square of each important city in the Kama Empire. The person engraved on the statue was none other than Chu Bei. We really have to thank Boss Chu for this battle. That's right. If he hadn't arrived in time, our empire would have been destroyed, and we would have been homeless, living the life of a fugitive. I heard that the reason why the Yunlan sect wasn't willing to help the imperial family was because the previous sect master, Yunshan, colluded with the Soul sect. However, Yunshan and that Soul sect member were killed by Boss Chu yesterday. My only wish is to see Boss Chu in person. He is the benefactor of the entire empire. Let's go to Wu Tan City together now. Let's see Boss Chu's glory. The news of the victory on the front lines quickly spread to every corner of the empire. Chu Bei's name also spread to the ears of all the citizens of the empire. Whether it was before tea or after meals, in the taverns or on the streets, Chu Bei was the topic of heated discussion. Wu Tan City and East Street. If it weren't for the soldiers blocking it, it would have been packed with passionate citizens. Inside the All-Heavens shop. Boss, you are now the savior of the empire. Everyone knows about you, Qing Lin said as she massaged Chu Bei's shoulders. Chu Bei had a worried expression as he sighed. Don't make fun of me. It doesn't feel good to be famous. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Qing Lin and Little Doctor looked at each other and smiled. After a long time, Chu Bei put down the tea in his hand. Boss, what's wrong? Seeing Chu Bei's gaze, Qing Lin and Little Doctor were puzzled. It's time to go to the central province for a stroll. Chu Bei's gaze swept over Qing Lin and Little Doctor as he said, Will you two come with me or stay here? The reason he made this decision was firstly because he was in the limelight in the Kama Empire. Wherever he went, he would be the focus of attention. Secondly, his daily sales limit was steadily increasing. Even if the imperial treasury was emptied, it would only last for 2 days. Moreover, the empire's war had just ended. The imperial family would not be able to mobilize funds for consumption in a short period of time. The central province? I've only heard about it. I didn't think I would have a chance to go. Qing Lin muttered to herself. The meaning behind her words was very clear. Since Boss is willing to take us, we are naturally willing to follow. Little Doctor's face was filled with joy. Her watery eyes were filled with longing for the central province. Then let's go. Saying so, Chu Bei got up and walked out of the All-Heavens shop. Wong. With a roar, a huge disc-shaped spaceship appeared diagonally above the All-Heavens shop. This was the spaceship that Chu Bei spent 100,000 willpower points to purchase. It was a spaceship from the 28th century made of meteoric iron. It could pierce through space. As for its shape, it was similar to an alien UFO. Boss, this is? Seeing the meteoric iron spaceship, Qing Lin and Little Doctor's jaws dropped. They were stunned. Just think of it as a mobile residence. Chu Bei waved his hand and flew the two girls into the meteoric iron spaceship. Inside the spaceship, the two girls looked at all kinds of high-tech sci-fi screens and buttons that they had never seen before. The shock in their eyes did not subside for a long time. In the Dochi continent, the strong and noble families all had flying vehicles. However, these vehicles were all domesticated flying monsters. Moreover, they only had the function of flying. But now, the spaceship they were in was not only faster, but also ridiculously large. It was simply a moving castle. Boss, who the hell are you? Can you tell us something about your past? Little Doctor looked at Chu Bei with admiration. Qing Lin was also full of expectation and curiosity. After a long time, you will know in the future. Chu Bei smiled knowingly and controlled the spaceship to fly to the central continent. While the meteoric iron spaceship was flying, Chu Bei purchased a novel called Battle Through the Heavens from the system and began to read it with great interest. Because he had been in this world for so long, he had no impression of many plots, especially the geographical location. After reading some specific plots, Chu Bei learned a lot about the central continent. The central continent, the central area of the Dochi continent, was divided into 4 parts: the Northern Territory, the Southern Territory, the Western Territory, and the Eastern Territory. This was the place where the strongest of the Do-Chi continent gathered. There were as many Do-Huang and Do-Zong as there were hairs on a cow. Due to its vast area, some of the large cities in the central continent had a special teleportation tool called the wormhole. The founders of the wormhole were mostly the strong or seniors of the cities. Of course, the families of these strong people also had a lot of wealth because they owned the wormhole. In terms of power, it was roughly divided into one hall, one tower, two sects, three valleys, and square pavilion. Other than the human forces, there were also the monster forces. One hall referred to the Soul Hall. It was an extremely mysterious force in the central continent. Not to mention the headquarters, even the branch halls were extremely secretive. Protector Yu, Wu Qian, and the others that Chu Bei had killed came from the branch hall of this force. One tower referred to the Pill Tower. It was the holy land in the hearts of all the alchemists in the Do-Chi continent. There was no one in the central continent who did not know of the three giants of the Pill Tower. The two sects referred to the Sky Underworld sect and the Flower sect. Although these two sects could not be compared to the Soul Hall and the Pill Tower, they were second only to them. There were many strong people in these sections. The three valleys were the Ice River Valley, the Sound Valley, and the Burning Flame Valley. They were not to be underestimated. The four pavilions were Xingyun Gu, Wanjin Pavilion, Huangquan Pavilion, and Wind Thunder Pavilion. Because the four pavilions were located in four directions above the central continent, they were also called the Square Pavilion. Other than the above forces, the central continent had many other forces that were not weak. Any one of these forces would be an overlord in the Kama Empire. A force like the Yunlan sect would at most be a third-rate force in the central continent. Few people would pay attention to it. During the flight, Chu Bei carefully taught the two women how to operate the meteorite iron ship in addition to practicing battle through the heavens. The meteoric iron ship could be used to attack and defend. It could be summoned at any time. Teaching the two girls how to use it was equivalent to giving them a way to protect themselves. "Boss, look in front." Suddenly, the little doctor looked at Chu Bei and pointed at the control screen. On the screen, there was an endless space tunnel not far from them. On both sides of the tunnel were faintly discernible silver space barriers. Looking carefully, there was a small boat in the tunnel. A middle-aged man and a woman in a red dress were standing on the boat. "Boss, is that the wormhole's transmission tunnel?" Qing Lin was curious. Chu Bei nodded in response. However, the space tunnel in front of them was clearly different. The walls of the tunnel, formed by the power of space, seemed to be hit by some kind of energy. They were fading at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Miss, I'm afraid we've encountered a space storm." In the space tunnel, the middle-aged man on the boat seemed to have thought of something. Fear appeared on his face. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the woman in the red dress became serious. When using a wormhole to transmit over a long distance, the most dangerous situation was to encounter a space storm in the space tunnel. The probability of this was very low. However, if one really encountered it and was dragged into the void by the storm, one would have no chance of escaping unless one was a 5-star Do Zong or above. "I hope this is just a small storm. It will pass quickly." The woman in the red dress took a deep breath. She put her hands together and prayed softly. However, the more one was afraid of something, the more it would happen. As soon as the woman in the red dress finished her words, a clear cracking sound came from the space wall. There was also a strange wind whistling sound. Looking at the energy storm outside the space wall, the hearts of the middle-aged man and the woman in the red dress sank to the bottom. Under the havoc of this space storm, the originally stable transmission tunnel shook violently. There was a cracking sound. "Damn it! I didn't expect to die here." Feeling the energy storm that had already seeped into the tunnel, the woman in the red dress had a face of unwillingness. At the same time, the Do-Chi in her body surged as she tried to block the crack in the transmission tunnel. "Boss, they seem to be in trouble." In the spaceship, the little doctor pointed at the screen and said, "Boss, why don't we save them?" Qing Lin looked at the two terrified people in the space tunnel, and her eyes were filled with pity and sympathy. "Didn't I already teach you how to control this spaceship? Since you want to save them, just do it." Chu Bei smiled knowingly. Hearing this, the little doctor and Qing Lin looked at each other. After nodding at the same time, They controlled the spaceship and flew toward the transmission tunnel. Kacha! Kacha! At this time, under the destruction of the space storm, the wormhole transmission tunnel had been damaged in many places. There was a possibility that it could completely collapse at any time. At this moment, the middle-aged man and the woman in the red dress on the boat had turned pale because of fear. "Miss, quickly look above us." However, just as the two of them were about to accept their fate, a huge, disc-shaped object descended above their tunnel. What is this? Looking at the huge object above them that they had never seen before, the woman in the red dress pupils suddenly shrank. "Hurry up and come up." It was also at this moment that a gentle and pleasant voice sounded in their ears. Immediately after, a long flight of stairs extended from below the huge object. It directly penetrated the space tunnel and extended to the front of the woman in the red dress and the middle-aged man. Seeing this, the two of them did not hesitate at all and subconsciously stepped onto the stairs. Rumble. Just a few seconds after the stairs rose, the power of the space storm rose to another level. With a loud bang, it completely tore the space tunnel apart. The woman in the red dress looked down. The boat that was originally carrying them was torn apart by the energy storm and instantly turned into dust. Seeing this scene, the woman in the red dress took a deep breath. Fear lingered in her heart. If this huge object had appeared a little later, the two of them would have been buried in the void. Not even their bones would be left. Soon, the woman in the red dress and the middle-aged man arrived at the spaceship. When the two of them saw the super sci-fi decorations around them that they had never seen before, their bodies stiffened and their mouths instinctively opened. "Are you all right?" Before the woman in the red dress could recover from her shock, the little doctor and Qing Lin had already walked over and asked with concern, "Did you save us?" "Thank you." The woman in the red dress was stunned at first, then hurriedly bowed to the little doctor and Qing Lin. The middle-aged man did the same. "We were just passing by and happened to see you in trouble." The little doctor pointed at Chu Bei, who was slowly walking over behind her, and continued, "And if you really want to thank us, you should thank our boss. This spaceship is his." Chapter 106. Thank you for saving us. The woman in the red dress looked at Chu Bei and bowed again. "The goddess of luck is looking out for you." Chu Bei replied indifferently, "Benefactor, you saved us, but we didn't bring much money with us on this trip. There are 3 sixth-order monster cores in this storage ring. Take them as part of the reward." The woman in the red dress took off the storage ring and handed it to Chu Bei. "If you have time, you can come with me to my home, and I'll give you the rest of the reward." Looking at the storage ring in front of him, Chu Bei's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He didn't expect that the woman he saved was actually a rich woman. Even sixth-order monster cores were not precious in her eyes. "Are you from the Central State?" The little doctor looked at the woman in the red dress and couldn't help but ask curiously, "Are you from outside the Central State?" Hearing the little doctor's question, the woman in the red dress's eyes flashed with surprise. "We're from the Kama Empire," the little doctor replied. "Kama Empire?" The woman in the red dress frowned, as if she didn't know much about the Kama Empire. "My name is Han Shui. I'm from the Han family in Tian Bay City in the northern region of the Central State." The woman in the red dress changed the topic. After introducing herself, she pointed to the middle-aged man beside her and said, "He's my follower, Han Chong." Perhaps because of the enthusiasm of the little doctor and Qing Lin, the two women quickly became familiar with Han Shui. Chu Bei on the side also learned a little about Han Shui because of the conversation between them. The status of Han Shui's family in Tian Bay City was equivalent to the status of the Xiao family in Wutan City. They were one of the 2 major forces in the city. The other force was the Hong family. Recently, the Hong family began to move frequently and began to target the Han family in all aspects. The vigilant Han family immediately sent Han Shui to personally pay a visit to a faction in Snow Wind City that had a good relationship with them. However, when the other party heard that they wanted to deal with the Hong family, they tactfully rejected their request. "This Hong family actually wants you and your sister to marry that Hong Chun." How despicable. The little doctor clenched her fists as she listened to Han Shui's narration. "Their ultimate goal is to annex my Han family and become the true overlord of Tian Bay City." Han Shue's eyes were filled with anger. Not to mention the two of us. Even if it was just one of us, we would never agree. Sister Han Shui, do you really fear that Hong family so much? Qing Lin, who had been listening, couldn't help but ask. If we really had to choose between our two families to be the strongest family in Tianbei City, the Hong family strength would be slightly higher. The most important thing is that this Hong family has some relationship with the Wind Thunder Pavilion. The most outstanding person in the younger generation, Hong Chun, is the person they want me and my sister to marry. He is a disciple of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Moreover, it is said that even in the Wind Thunder Pavilion where geniuses gather, they are highly valued. At this point, Han Shui shook her head and said with a hint of helplessness, "It is also because of the Wind Thunder Pavilion that the Hong family's prestige and influence have greatly increased in recent years. They have even begun to extend their tentacles into the area controlled by my Han family." The Wind Thunder Pavilion in the Central States, 1 hall, 1 pagoda, 2 sects, 3 valleys square pavilion. Hearing the name Wind Thunder Pavilion, the little doctor's face was filled with astonishment. Not long ago, she had learned about this power from Chu Bei. Is there a second power in the Central State that dares to be called the Wind Thunder Pavilion? Han Shui let out a long breath and said, "That Hong Chun is a disciple of Fenglei Beige." After talking about herself and the Han family, Han Shui pointed around. "What are you guys doing here? Living in the Central State, this is the first time I've seen something like this. It's fine if it doesn't use wormholes, but it doesn't fear spatial storms. This is the boss's treasure. As for its origin, we don't know." The little doctor moved closer to Han Shui's ear and whispered, "Our boss is very mysterious. Whether you think of it or not, he has it all. Of course, this is on the premise that you have money. What cultivation does your boss have?" Han Shui's eyes turned and asked curiously. The little doctor secretly glanced at Chu Bei. When she found that the latter was not paying attention to them, she whispered a few more words. After hearing the little doctor's words, Han Shui was first stunned, then her face filled with joy. After a while, Han Shui carefully walked to Chu Bei's side and said respectfully, "Boss Chu, you are my savior. Can you come to our Tianbei City's Han family and stay for a while? Other than the reward, let us treat you well." Chu Bei looked at Han Shui. He naturally understood what Han Shui was thinking, but he did not point it out. Who told the Han family to be rich? He was a businessman and could use this opportunity to do some business. Then I'll listen to you. Of course, there were other reasons why Chu Bei agreed to go to the Han family. One was because they did not have a destination in the Central State, and the other was because Qing Lin and the little doctor liked Han Shui a lot. "Thank you, Boss Chu." Seeing Chu Bei nod, Han Shui was very excited and repeatedly bowed to the former. 15 minutes later, the ship left the void and arrived above a city dozens of times larger than Wutan City. In order to avoid unnecessary disturbances, Chu Bei's group landed outside the city. "Boss Chu, do you still have the ship we just rode on?" Looking at the place where the ship disappeared, Han Shui looked at Chu Bei with a hint of desire in her eyes. "As long as you have money, you can have it." Chu Bei tidied up his clothes and lightly said, "Remember, I'm a businessman that can do wholesale." Yes, I'll remember." Previously on the ship, she had already learned the rules of trading with Chu Bei from the little doctor and Qing Lin, but she had not tried it yet. Chu Bei's group walked towards the city entrance. Whoosh, whoosh. However, just when Chu Bei, Han Shui, and the others were about a kilometer away from the city gate, two sounds of something breaking through the air came from afar. In a few breaths, two figures blocked Chu Bei's group. Then, from the forest on both sides, a large number of black figures rushed out and blocked the road to Tianbei City. The two people who blocked Chu Bei's path were wearing light red robes. On the chest of their robes, there was a similar red badge. "Hong family, what are you doing?" Han Chong immediately recognized the badge on the two people's chests and shouted angrily, "You're just a follower. Do you have the right to speak?" One of the red-robed men glanced at Han Chong with disdain. Then his gaze fell on Han Shui. "Miss Han Shui, the head of our Hong family invites you to be a guest at our residence. We've been waiting for you here for a long time. I really didn't expect your Hong family to send two elders to catch a little girl like me. It's my honor." Han Shui obviously knew the two red-robed men, and her words were full of dissatisfaction. Facing the people blocking the road, although Han Shui was very calm on the surface, she was very flustered on the inside. Although the two people in front of her were at the bottom of the elders' seats, they were still elders. Their strength was 9 stars Do Wang's. If she didn't know about Chu Bei's strength from the little doctor, she probably wouldn't have been able to escape today. Moreover, she wasn't sure if this boss Chu, who she didn't have much interaction with, would help her. After all, the power behind the Hong family was the Wind Thunder Pavilion. The head of the Hong family thought that you would have at least one Do Wang's following you, so he sent the two of us. One of the red-robed men glanced at Han Chong with disdain and sneered, "Unexpectedly, you're just a little Do Ling at this point." The red-robed man shook his head, "But since you're already here, I can only personally invite you back to the Hong residence. Don't even think about it. I'm not going to the Hong residence." Han Shui coldly snorted. She pulled out the thin sword at her waist and her aura rose. "That's not up to you." A hint of impatience flashed across the red-robed man's eyes. His figure flashed as he took a step forward. When he was 10 meters away from Han Shui, he waved his right hand and a strong, scorching wind with an oppressive aura rushed towards Han Shui. Feeling the strong wind coming towards her, Han Shui clenched her teeth. But just as she was about to use her sword to meet the attack, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. With a wave of his sleeve, he easily dissolved the red-robed man's scorching wind. "Thank you, Boss Chu, for helping." Han Shui revealed a smile. The person who helped was Chu Bei. She was really afraid that Chu Bei would be a bystander. After all, with her strength as a Do Ling, it was impossible for her to safely receive the attack of a 9 stars Do Wang's. Seeing that his attack was dissolved, the red-robed man frowned and looked at Chu Bei again. From the beginning, he had noticed Chu Bei's existence. However, he had always thought that he was just a good-for-nothing second generation who was on good terms with Han Shui. Unexpectedly, the other party had such strength. "Little brother, what's your relationship with her?" "I'm an elder of the Hong family. Under the orders of the head of the family, I need to bring her to the Hong residence." The red-robed man was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he revealed his background. He especially emphasized the words elder of the Hong family. Noisy. However, the only response he got was 2 irritated syllables from Chu Bei. "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." A murderous look appeared on the red-robed man's face. With a cold shout, the Do Chi in his body surged. As his figure moved, his right palm once again condensed a strong wind. Compared to the previous attack, this time, the red-robed man clearly used all his strength. The power was intimidating. Chu Bei calmly looked at the red-robed man who was getting closer and closer. Just when the red-robed man was 2 meters away from him, he slowly raised his right hand. He swung it out gently. Bang! 2 gusts of wind collided. First, there was a low muffled sound, followed by the crisp sound of the red-robed man's palm bones breaking. Under several gazes, the red-robed man's chest caved in as if he had suddenly suffered a heavy blow. Amidst the blood-curdling screams, his figure flew out like a cannonball and landed in front of another red-robed man. The other red-robed man who had not attacked hurriedly helped the red-robed man up. However, when his hands touched the latter's body, his body suddenly trembled. When he raised his head to look at Chu Bei again, there was an obvious trace of fear on his face. He instinctively took a few steps back. In just one exchange, his companion had died in the hands of the other party. Chapter 107. Retreat. The other red-robed man looked at Chu Bei with fear and immediately gave the order. He wanted to tell the family head about the person in front of him as soon as possible. But before they could leave, Chu Bei waved his hand. Suddenly, the 3-colored flames spread out and quickly sealed the red-robed man and his subordinates behind him. Almost at the same time, shrill screams drifted through the air. When the screams faded, the red-robed elder and the struggling figures in the sea of fire all disappeared, burned into nothingness. Chu Bei waved his hand again. The 3-colored sea of fire disappeared, leaving nothing behind except for the high temperature of the air. Witnessing this process, Han Shui instinctively swallowed. When she looked at Chu Bei again, there was a hint of awe. With a raise of his hand, he killed 2 9-stars king of fighters effortlessly. Continue to lead the way. Chu Bei acted as if nothing had happened. He calmly looked at Han Shui and pointed to the entrance of the city. The truth was indeed so. Now that his cultivation had entered the Grandmaster realm, killing 2 king of fighters was like squashing ants. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Han Shui recovered from the shock and quickly gestured respectfully to Chu Bei. Ta. Not long after Chu Bei and the others entered the city, the sound of horse hooves suddenly came from the street far away. Soon after, he saw a group of people quickly approaching. The person leading the group was a man in white clothes. Xiao Shui, how did the Bai family of Snow Wind City reply? The man in white jumped off his warhorse and impatiently asked Han Shui. When they heard that we were going to deal with the Hong family, they refused without hesitation. Han Shui coldly snorted. These guys, when it comes to critical times, they can't be counted on. The man in white clenched his fist, his words filled with resentment. Sister just came back and this happened. Is she okay now? Han Shui asked. You'll know when we get back. The man in white noticed Chu Bei and Qing Lin, and his eyes were filled with confusion. They are. Han Shui secretly glanced at Chu Bei, then pulled the man in white to the side and whispered a few words. Boss Chu, it's a blessing for the Han family to have you visit our Han family. When the man in white returned, he was even more respectful to Chu Bei than to Han Shui. For the rest of the journey, he was flattering and almost offering himself. In Tianbei City, the Han family was located in the south of the city. Opposite them was the Hong family, which occupied the north. The 2 great clans were like the 2 rulers of this city, dividing it into 2 distinct halves. Under the guidance of the man in white and Han Shui, Chu Bei and his group arrived in front of a vast manor. At this moment, there were many carriages parked in front of the manor. These carriages had a flag with a red emblem on the roof. Upon closer inspection, the red emblem was the emblem on the chest of the man in red who was killed by Chu Bei in front of the city gate. Why are the people from the Hong family here? Looking at the carriages in front of the door, Han Shui's face instantly darkened. Let's go and see what happened. The white-clothed young man also frowned. After speaking, he led Chu Bei into the manor. After passing through layers upon layers of small paths, a grand and imposing hall appeared in Chu Bei's line of sight. Even though there was still some distance, he could vaguely see many figures gathered in the hall on the first floor. Outside the hall, Han Shui gave a few Han family guards a look, then led Chu Bei into the hall and found a place to sit. In the hall, the atmosphere was quite tense. The experts from the Hong family and the people from the Han family stood facing each other. On the Hong family's side, the leader was a young man in green. The young man was about 26 or 27 years old. His face couldn't be considered handsome, but it had a certain charm. Between his eyebrows, there was a hint of unconcealable arrogance. On the Han family's side, the leader was a middle-aged man in a brocade robe. Beside the middle-aged man, there was a graceful woman. The woman wore a purple robe. Her facial features were delicate, and her skin was as white as snow. The only flaw was that her cheeks carried a trace of coldness. Her beautiful eyes carried a sense of sternness that prevented strangers from getting close to her. Hong Chun, you brought people and barged into the Han family today. Don't you think you've gone too far? Don't think that just because you have the support of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, you can be so unscrupulous. My Han family's status in Tianbei City today is not because we were trampled on by others. The middle-aged man in the brocade robe coldly looked at the young man in front of him. His loud and clear voice reverberated in the hall. It wasn't hard to hear the anger in his voice. Han Bofu, how can you use the word barge? This nephew is clearly here to pay a visit. Hong Chun didn't care about Han Chi's threatening words in the slightest, and he glanced at the violet-clothed woman by his side before he said, I've come here this time because I want to know about the request my father raised a few days ago. Have you considered it? My Han family has never had 2 women serving one husband. Even if there was, as their father, I wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Han Chi let out a cold snort. So the request you're talking about, in my opinion, is no different from a fart. Han Bofu, you'd better consider it carefully. When that time comes, I'm afraid it'll be too late for you to regret it. Hearing Han Chi's words, Hong Chen's face became gloomy. His words also carried a hint of threat. What? Do you think that with your Hong family's current strength, you can easily swallow my Han family? Han Chi's gaze was cold in the forest. Hong Chen sneered and said, Han Bofu, I'm afraid you still don't know that this nephew has officially become a disciple of Fenglei Beige's inner pavilion 3 days ago. Hong Chen's words were like a heavy bomb that had been dropped in the hall. The faces of the Han family members, including Han Chi, changed. Even the woman in purple, who had always been expressionless, couldn't help but frown. In the Wind Thunder Pavilion, whether it was the North Pavilion or the other 3 pavilions, they were all divided into the Inner Pavilion and the Outer Pavilion. It was just like Canaan College's Inner Pavilion and Outer Pavilion. Once one became a disciple of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's Inner Pavilion, their family would be completely protected by the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Simply put, Hong Chen becoming a disciple of the Inner Pavilion meant that the Hong family had truly relied on the big tree known as the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Looking at Han Chi and the Han family members' serious expressions, Hong Chen smiled with satisfaction and said, seeing that our 2 families once had a friendly relationship, I'll give you a chance. 3 days later, as long as someone from the younger generation of the Han family can defeat me, my Hong family will not cause trouble for you for 10 years. If I fail, then your 2 precious daughters will have to marry me. After saying this, Hong Chen looked at the woman in purple and greedily licked his lips. Hearing this, the faces of Han Chi and the Han family members became even more gloomy. Although Hong Chen's personality was arrogant and looked down on everyone, no one in Tianbei City could compare with his talent for training. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been chosen by the Wind Thunder Pavilion and accepted as a disciple of the Inner Pavilion. His current cultivation was also a 4-star Do Huang. In the entire Tianbei City, not to mention those of the same generation, even those of the older generation who could match him were few and far between. Because of this, the chance that the other party spoke of was as good as none. Hong Chen, you little brat, you've gone too far. Han Chi angrily glared. Vigorous Do Chi surged out of his body, emitting a terrifying aura. Han Bofu, if you don't grab this chance, my Hong family will make a move today. Hong Chen wasn't afraid of Han Chi at all. He laughed loudly, his laughter filled with pride. This seems like déjà vu. In a corner of the hall, Chu Bei, who had witnessed this scene, couldn't help but smile. This scene was exactly the same as when Nalin Yinran visited the Xiao family. The only difference was that Nalin Yinran forcefully broke off the engagement while Hong Chen wanted to forcefully marry the Han family's 2 daughters. How interesting. Chu Bei looked at Hong Chen, who was the center of attention, with interest on his face. When Hong Chen's voice fell, the atmosphere in the hall became deathly silent. After a long while, a clear and cold voice broke the strange silence. My Han family accepts your challenge. However, if you lose, only I can marry you. It's impossible for my sister. The person who spoke was the purple-clothed girl who hadn't spoken since the beginning. No problem. Then marry the elder sister first. We'll talk about it later. Since I've already received a response, I, Hong Chen, will take my leave. In 3 days, I'll see you at Jiachu Bidodo. When the time comes, let everyone in the city bear witness to this scene. Hong Chen stared at the purple-clothed girl with a burning gaze. After his savage laughter, he waved his right hand and left with the Hong family. Yuer, why did you accept this challenge? Could it be that you found someone of the same generation as Hong Chen? Han Chi looked at the purple-clothed girl in confusion as he watched Hong Chen and the others leave. Father, where do you want me to find such a person? The purple-clothed girl shook her head and clenched her jade-like hands into fists. She took a light breath and said, however, if you don't accept this challenge, they'll make their move today. Are you confident that you can deal with them? Why don't you accept this challenge first? You'll still have 3 days of buffer time. If I still can't find a way to deal with the Hong family after 3 days, I'll just marry him. As she spoke, the purple-clothed girl's face was filled with unwillingness. Elder sister, I won't let you marry that guy. Han Shui walked out from the corner. Shuer, you're back. When he saw Han Shui, Han Chi immediately asked, is the Bai family of Snowstorm City willing to help? Han Shui shook her head angrily. As expected, Han Chi laughed bitterly in self-mockery, as if he had already guessed the result. Father, let me introduce you to a guest. On our way back, we encountered a spatial storm and he saved us. Han Shui paced back and forth and respectfully welcomed Chu Bei. However, before she could finish her introduction, a cry of surprise rang through the great hall. Boss Chu. When she saw Chu Bei's face clearly, the purple-clothed girl's body trembled violently. She then widened her eyes and cried out involuntarily. In an instant, everyone in the great hall turned to look at the purple-clothed girl. Due to her personality, even her father, Han Chi, had never seen the purple-clothed girl lose her composure. This was the first time. Soon after, the crowd turned to look at Chu Bei and sized up Han Shui's savior, who had caused the purple-clothed girl to lose her composure. Chapter 108. The little fairy doctor and Qing Lin exchanged glances with each other when they heard the purple-clothed lady say the words Boss Chu. Shock surfaced in their eyes. Han Shui was even more so. Her face was filled with shock. After a long while, Han Shui reacted and fixed her gaze on the woman in purple. She asked in surprise, Sister, do you know Boss Chu? The woman in purple ignored Han Shui and walked quickly toward Chu Bei. Her face was filled with excitement and joy. Have we met before? Chu Bei looked at Han Shui carefully and tried his best to recall. Boss Chu, I'm Han Yu. Han Shui said excitedly, I didn't expect you to be a guest at my Han family. Han Yu. Chu Bei repeated the woman in purple's name. He looked a little embarrassed. He had no recollection of this name at all. As far as he could remember, ever since he had transmigrated, he had never had any dealings with the woman before him. Although he had rewatched Battle Through the Heavens on the spaceship, he had only watched some of the important scenes. As for this woman named Han Yu, he really had no recollection of her. You really don't seem to know me. At this moment, the excited Han Yu seemed to have recalled something. Her cheeks flushed red and she scratched her head awkwardly. Chu Bei was even more confused when he heard Han Yu's words. He stared at Han Yu in confusion. Han Yu began to avoid looking at Chu Bei again. She cleared her throat to diffuse the awkwardness and said, Boss Chu, I'm an inner courtyard disciple of Canaan College. I was also in the inner courtyard on the day Han Feng led his men to attack us. Moreover, I have a good relationship with Xiao Yin. I've heard other stories about you from him. I see. After knowing that Han Yu was an inner court of Canaan disciple, Chu Bei instantly understood. On the day that Han Feng attacked, Chu Bei became famous in a single battle. The process of his battle was widely spread throughout the Jianan Academy. Is he the mysterious merchant you mentioned to me before who killed the 9 stars of Seoul Hall Dozong and saved Canaan College from danger? Hearing Chu Bei and Han Yu's conversation, Han Chi also reacted and said in shock, Yes, that merchant is Boss Chu. Han Yu nodded. After Chu Bei arrived, the gloominess on Han Yu's face due to Hong Qin's matter vanished. Boss Chu, please take a seat. Han Chi reacted and was about to lead Chu Bei to the head of the table to take a seat. You don't have to be so polite. Chu Bei wasn't used to the Han family's enthusiasm. His purpose for coming here was to do business. Now that the Han family was treating him like this, he would feel bad if they gave him all thanks and patronage. Boss Chu, you've seen Hong Qin's attitude. Please help me. Han Yu looked pitifully at Chu Bei. After she finished speaking, her large eyes were filled with tears. As Han Yu's younger sister, Han Shui was flabbergasted when she saw how quickly Han Yu had changed. Han Yu, since you're a disciple of the inner court of Canaan, you must know that I'm a merchant. I can fulfill all your requests, but you have to have money. Chu Bei continued to guide her. As long as you have enough money, the Han family's predicament that you're worried about is not a problem. I know. Han Yu looked at Chu Bei sincerely. Not only do I know the rules of doing business with you, but I also know that the inner court elders, including Great Elder Su Qian, have all done business with you and received great benefits. If that's the case, then I won't say anything else. Chu Bei's lips curled up. Boss Chu, then I'll leave everything to you. My request is to defeat Hong Chun in the battle in 3 days. Han Yu's expression was very serious. As for money, it's not a problem. You mean that you want to personally fight Hong Chun in 3 days? Nonsense. You're only a 9 stars battle spirit. You haven't even broken through to the Battle King level. What do you have to fight Hong Chun? Han Chi and the older generation of the Han family immediately scolded Han Yu upon hearing her words. Father, don't be angry. If it was before, I wouldn't have made this decision, but Boss Chu is here, so anything is possible. Han Yu looked at Han Chi and continued, You'll know in a while, but don't worry too much about money. Boss Chu, let's begin. Han Yu stepped forward and took off Han Chi's storage ring. After checking the wealth inside, she looked at Chu Bei. There's 120 million here. Feel free to use it. Buzz buzz. Just as Han Yu finished speaking, Chu Bei waved his sleeve. The void trembled and ripples appeared. A golden disc with a diameter of 1 meter appeared from the ripples, exuding a piercing light. The light dissipated, and it could be seen that the disc was divided into 10 areas, each of which had a different colored box flashing on it. Aside from that, there was a silver pointer hanging from the disc, and there were 7 large words engraved on the tip of the pointer. Level 6 Wheel of Fortune. What is this? Looking at the spinning wheel floating in front of Han Yu, Han Chi and the other members of the Han family narrowed their eyes. At the same time, they were astonished and curious. It's just as you said. Han Shui whispered into the little doctor's ear. You're currently a 9 stars battle spirit, and you'll need 1 spirit barrier pill and 8 battle Wangdan pills to upgrade to a 9 stars battle king. Chu Bei pointed at the level 6 wheel as he looked at Han Yu. They're all on this level 6 wheel, and it costs 800,000 gold coins to spin it once. Understood. Han Yu's eyes met with Chu Bei's, and she nodded heavily. The system has received 80,000 willpower, and the host has received 40,000 willpower. When the wheel swallowed the 8 million gold coins in the storage ring, the silver pointer began to spin wildly. At the same time, the system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's mind. Ding ding. In the hall, under the shocked gazes of several people, a set of 10 square boxes was placed side by side in front of Han Yu. Boom. Loud noises rang out in unison. The 10 boxes exploded at the same time. All of them were thank yous, and there was no exception. Boss Chu, let's continue with the second set. Han Yu took a deep breath and quickly regained her composure. When she was in the inner court of Canaan, she learned about the lottery rate from some of the elders. Those who were lucky would hit the jackpot. Those who were unlucky would hit the jackpot. On the other hand, Han Chi and the other members of the Han family wanted to say something but stopped. They seemed to want to say something, but when they saw Han Yu's determined look, they swallowed the words back. Chu Bei looked at Han Yu and nodded slightly. The system has received 80,000 willpower, and the host has received 40,000 willpower. In the second set, 10 boxes exploded. 7 thank yous, 2 rank 5 monster cores, and a rank 5 spirit plant. Boss Chu, please continue. Han Yu's gaze swept across the monster cores and spirit plant, and she bit her lip. In the hall, Han Chi and the other members of the Han family frowned after seeing the items in the second set. 2 sets of 16 million gold coins were wasted just like that. Although they were suspicious, they did not say anything and continued to look at the lucky wheel. The silver pointer continued to spin. In the third set, 8 thank yous, an armor that could defend against an 8-star Douling's attack, and a rank 5 monster core. In the fourth set, 7 thank yous, a purplish-red pill, and 2 rank 5 monster cores. When the purplish-red pill appeared, Chu Bei did not continue to spin the fifth set. Boss Chu, this is? Looking at the purplish-red pill, Han Yu's face was filled with nervousness and anticipation. Spirit Barrier Pill. It can help you break through to the King of Fighters, Chu Bei said calmly. It's finally out. After receiving Chu Bei's reply, Han Yu let out a long sigh of relief. Her mood was obviously much more relaxed. She was really afraid that she would be unlucky and not get anything after using up all 120 million gold coins. If the result was as she feared, she did not know how to explain it to Han Chi and the elders in the family. After a while, only then did Han Yu calm her excited heart. She carefully took the spirit barrier pill and swallowed it. As soon as the pill entered her mouth, an ice-cold feeling instantly spread from Han Yu's mouth. Before she could adapt to the coldness, it turned into a warm feeling that quickly spread through her limbs and bones. Immediately after, the air in the hall vibrated. Majestic energy surged in from outside the hall and entered Han Yu's body. This energy fluctuation, she's really going to break through. Sensing Han Yu's rising aura, Han Chi and the Han family elders looked at each other in disbelief. Bang! After a few seconds, a low muffled sound came from Han Yu's body. Then, a large amount of light purple battle energy surged behind Han Yu until it condensed into a pair of thin energy wings. Battle energy wings, the symbol of a king of fighters. She broke through. Seeing the battle energy wings, Han Chi cried out in surprise. Everyone else who witnessed this scene was also excited. Boss Chu, let's do the first promotion in 5 groups. Han Yu opened her eyes and felt the battle energy in her body increase by several times. She impatiently said to Chu Bei, "You're a customer." Chu Bei nodded in response. The system has received 400,000 willpower. The host has received 200,000 willpower. This time, the wheel directly swallowed the 40 million gold coins in the storage ring. With crisp clinking sounds, 50 square boxes flew out from the turntable one after another. Perhaps because of the appearance of the spirit barrier pill, Han Chi and the other Han family members looked at the square boxes with hope. Boom! The 50 square boxes exploded. 37, thank you for your patronage. 6 5th-grade demon cores, 2 5th-grade spirit plants, 1 purplish-red pill, and 4 dark green pills. After opening the spirit barrier pill again, Han Yu was not as excited as before. This was because the spirit barrier pill was useless to her after breaking through to the king of fighters. On the other hand, the surrounding Han family elders were abnormally excited when they saw that another spirit barrier pill had been opened. This was because in the Han family, other than Han Yu, there were also a few young people who had reached the 9 stars Do spirit realm. And among the younger generation, some were their children. Now that Han Yu had broken through, this spirit barrier pill was very likely to be used on their heirs. Boss Chu, these are Wangdindo spirit pills, right? Han Yu's gaze fell on the 4 dark green pills and asked tentatively. Seeing Chu Bei nod, Han Yu immediately revealed a smile. Then, she threw the 4 dark green pills into her mouth at the same time. She did not doubt the authenticity of the pills and the side effects because even Elder Su of the Inner Court of Canaan had taken these pills before. It was just that the latter had taken the more precious Do Zong pill. After the 4 Wang Dan Do spirit pills entered her mouth, Han Yu's originally stable aura once again rose at a terrifying speed. Only when a low muffled sound was emitted from her body did her aura stop rising. At this moment, Han Yu was already a 5-star Do spirit realm. What a benefactor! At this moment, Han Chi no longer had any suspicion on his face. There was only a deep respect for Chu Bei. The transaction continued. When the remaining 48 million had been transferred, another 5 Wang Dan Do spirit pills were obtained. Han Yu took 4 of them and swallowed them. Her cultivation had directly reached the 9 stars Do spirit realm.
Father, I'm not far away.
Looking at the empty storage ring, Han Yu looked at Han Chi, who was immersed in joy, was first startled when he heard Han Yu's words. Then, he quickly understood what she meant and disappeared from the hall in a flash. When he returned, there were 2 more storage rings in his hand. Boss Chu, the money here is the savings of my Han family for the past 10 years. You can take as much as you want. At this moment, Han Chi didn't seem to care about the family's savings. Chu Bei scanned the 2 storage rings with his divine sense. It had to be said that the resources of the Central Province clans were not something the Kama Empire could compare to. A Han family from Tianbei City in the northern region of the Central Province clans had displayed far more wealth than the Primer clan of the Kama Empire. So cultivation is actually this simple. Just pay with money. Han Shui couldn't help but sigh after witnessing Han Yu's breakthrough from the 9 stars Do spirit realm to the 9 stars Do spirit realm. For some reason, she felt that being born into a rich family was a very fortunate thing. If you want to make another breakthrough, the 6th level is no longer enough for you. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. With a wave of his sleeve, the 6th-level wheel disappeared and was replaced by a 7th-level wheel. 1,000,000 gold coins per spin. Chu Bei quoted a price. Han Shui nodded and gladly accepted the price. An hour later. According to the host cultivation, the host has reached the upper limit of gold coins sold today. The host will sell again tomorrow. After selling another 100,000,000 gold coins, the system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's mind. Compared to the 6th-level wheel, the 7th level will had a much lower chance of winning. After spending 100,000,000 gold coins, Han Shui's cultivation broke through from the 9 stars Do King realm to the 4 stars Do Emperor realm, which was the same as Hong Qin's. Let's stop here for today. Just as Han Yu was about to continue spinning, Chu Bei put away the lucky wheel. Stabilize and familiarize yourself with the sudden increase in strength. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Han Yu nodded heavily. After answering, she looked at Han Qi. Father, with my current cultivation and the battle skills I used earlier, I already have the confidence to deal with Hong Chun. From tomorrow onwards, you should also look for Boss Chu to raise your cultivation. Han Qi was slightly stunned, then looked at Chu Bei. Can I do it too? As long as you have money. Chu Bei smiled. After returning to the residence that Han Yu arranged for him, Chu Bei also began to convert his cultivation. Today, the Han family sold 220,000,000 gold coins, receiving 1,000,000 willpower points in return. In the Dozong realm, converting 1 star required 1,000,000 willpower points. After spending 1,000,000 willpower points, Chu Bei went from a 1-star Dozong to a 2 stars Dozong. Chapter 109. Time passed by. 3 days passed by in a flash. In these 3 days, Han Qi and his daughter, as well as some of the more reputable elders of the clan, had been punctually visiting Chu Bei. In other words, they were here to make a deal. After Han Yu raised her cultivation to 7 stars of Do Huang to ensure that she could defeat Hong Chun, she did not continue to raise her cultivation. Instead, she used more money to raise Han Qi's cultivation. Of course, in these 3 days, Chu Bei's sales had reached the upper limit, emptying out 80% of the Han family's wealth. Although the family's savings had been emptied, Han Qi still felt that it was worth it. He had made a huge profit. After all, now that his strength had skyrocketed, he had enough confidence to face the Hong family. And Chu Bei's cultivation had also risen from 2 stars Dozong to 6 stars Dozong. Jiachu Bedodo, as the name implied, was located in the most central area of Tianbei City. Its area was extremely large, with a length and width of more than 100 feet. It was directly dug out from a huge mountain and had a long history. Whenever there were conflicts between factions in the city that did not want to start a war, they would choose to fight here first. Therefore, Jiachu Bedodo had always been the most eye-catching area in Tianbei City. Because of the Hong family's strong promotion, today's Jiachu Bedodo was undoubtedly the most popular event in Tianbei City in the last 10 years. From the top factions in the city to the wanderers under the bridge, everyone knew that the Hong family's Hong Chun and the Han family's outstanding younger generation would compete here. Around the fighting stage, there were densely packed seats. At this moment, there was still some time before the competition, but there were almost no empty seats. At a glance, there was a black mass of heads. It is said that Hong Chun has already been accepted as a disciple by Fenglei Beige. Is this true? If this is true, then the Hong family will be the overlord of the city. No wonder they dared to make the unreasonable request of having 2 women from the Hong family serve 1 husband. The spectator stands were in an uproar, and the sounds of intense discussion were incessant. There was no one in Tianbei City who did not know the name Yu Hongchun. Although he was arrogant by nature, he had shown a shocking talent for cultivation since he was young. After his coming-of-age ceremony, he was chosen by the Wind Thunder Pavilion and gained another halo of glory. Because of the Wind Thunder Pavilion behind Hong Chun, the Hong family's influence in Tianbei City soared. Their fame even overshadowed the old tyrant of the city, the Han family. Most of the spectators in the circle closest to the fighting ring were wearing red robes with the same badge on their chests. Of course, I should personally go up. At this moment, Han Yu coldly opened her mouth and spoke. Yuer, aren't you making things difficult for me? Hong Chen frowned and sighed. Forget it. Let's end this farce as soon as possible. After speaking, Hong Chen's figure flashed and appeared in front of Han Yu in the blink of an eye. As if he was afraid of hurting Han Yu, Hong Chen only raised his arm slightly and did not release too much energy. Looking at the approaching Hong Chen, Han Yu's face did not have the slightest trace of panic. However, just as Hong Chen's right palm, which used less than 30% of his strength, was about to hit Han Yu's chest, a vigorous and majestic energy surged out from Han Yu's body and swept towards Hong Chen like a surging river. Feeling this sudden surge of energy, Hong Chen's face suddenly changed. Without any hesitation, he immediately raised his aura to the limit and released all of his Do Qi at the same time. However, even with his defense, Hong Chen was still pushed back a few meters in this kind of unguarded situation. His feet left deep marks on the stage. How is this possible? Han Yu repelled Hong Chen. Do Qi wings. She broke through to Do Huang. No, that aura just now. It was definitely a Do Huang. In the spectator stands, everyone was flabbergasted. At this moment, their brains seemed to have lost the ability to think. They stared blankly at Han Yu on the stage, as if they did not dare to believe the scene they had just witnessed. 7-star Do Huang. If there was one who was the most shocked in the arena, it would be Hong Chen, who had personally experienced the impact of the energy within Han Yu's body. He could not believe that his opponent was a 9-star Do Ling 3 days ago, and now she was a 7-star Do Huang. Now, do you think I have the qualifications to be your opponent? Han Yu looked at Hong Chen expressionlessly. Meeting Han Yu's gaze, Hong Chen did not say anything. With a cold shout, the aura of a 5-star Do Huang exploded. In 3 days, what exactly happened to Han Yu's body? Even if she obtained a heavenly treasure, it is impossible for her to break through so much. The Hong family looked at Han Yu on the stage in disbelief. Elder Shen, did she consume some kind of elixir that can increase her strength in a short period of time? After Hong Li looked at Han Yu, he turned to the old man beside him with incomparable respect. The old man was wearing a gray robe. His eyes were closed, and he did not care about the clamor of the outside world. On his chest, there was a green and silver emblem. The emblem depicted a pagoda that was faintly surrounded by lightning. Hearing Hong Li's voice, the gray-robed old man shook his head. Her aura is vigorous, and there is no trace of disorder. She is indeed a 7-star Do Huang. Moreover, this old man has never heard of any elixir that can increase a 9-star Do Ling strength to a 7-star Do Huang in 3 days. Could it be that this girl has been hiding her strength all this time? Hong Li frowned and said, then in your opinion, can Shaner defeat her? The old man narrowed his eyes and glanced at Han Yu on the stage. My Wind Thunder Pavilion only collects high-level Do skills. Moreover, Hong Chen is my direct disciple, and the Do Qi that he practices is one of the top Do Qi techniques in Fenglai Beige. In terms of fighting strength, not to mention a 7-star Do Huang who is only 2 stars higher than him, he can even fight against an ordinary peak Do Huang. After speaking, the gray-robed old man closed his eyes again. It seemed that in his opinion, there was no suspense in this battle. Hearing the old man's words, Hong Li let out a sigh of relief, and the corners of his mouth rose again. At the same time, Hong Chen and Han Yu on the stage flew into the air. For strong people with the ability to fly, the sky was their battlefield. You have really surprised me. High up in the sky, Hong Chen stared at Han Yu with a burning gaze. This is also good. Only this kind of you is worthy of me. As his voice fell, dense lightning suddenly surged out of Hong Chen's body and circled around him, crackling nonstop. You don't have the right to call me that. Looking at the lightning that was like a silver snake, Han Yu coldly snorted. Hong Chen didn't say anything else. With a wave of his embroidered robe, a lightning bolt that was like a python cut through the air and shot toward Han Yu. Hong Chen, don't waste my time with an attack of this level. Han Yu's voice was cold and indifferent. With a palm strike, the lightning dissipated. I'm really afraid of hurting you. Hong Chen sighed and shook his head. His figure was like a ghost as he once again appeared in front of Han Yu. However, this time, Hong Chen was clearly much more serious. His right fist was surrounded by lightning. Feeling the wild lightning power on Hong Chen's fist, Han Yu's figure flashed and perfectly dodged to the side. Wind lightning claw. Hong Chen opened his fist and his 5 fingers turned into claws. As his shout fell, the lightning around Hong Chen quickly gathered in his claws and continued to grab Han Yu's arm. Triple fold palm. Han Yu met his attack head-on. This was a Do technique that she had learned in Canaan College. Now that she was using it with the cultivation of a 7-star Do Huang, its power was quite extraordinary. Bang! The 2 figures continuously intertwined in the air. The continuous sound of collision brought about a frightening energy wave. Although Hong Chen's cultivation was lower than Han Yu's, relying on the lightning haste and a higher-level Do technique, not only was he not at a disadvantage, but he also always had the upper hand. Han Yu countered every move that came her way and didn't show any signs of being defeated. Soon, the battle lasted for 15 minutes. Chapter 110. In the spectator stands, the audience was dazzled. The gorgeous Do skills were too much for their eyes to take in. The more they watched, the more excited they became. During this time, even the gray-robed elder beside Hong Li opened his eyes a few times. He was slightly surprised. On the battlefield, Hong Chen's attacks were neutralized time and time again. Gradually, a look of annoyance appeared on his face. As the battle intensified, Hong Chen had already regarded Han Yu as his opponent. Thunder God's Descent. Suddenly, Hong Chen pulled away from Han Yu and shouted. Then, he stomped his right foot. Suddenly, tens of thousands of snake-shaped lightning bolts burst out from under his feet. In just a moment, they spread out for nearly 100 feet with Hong Chen as the center. Hong Chen, who was in the center, looked like the ruler of thunder and lightning. His aura was terrifying. In addition to the surge in his aura, a black iron hammer appeared in Hong Chen's hand. The hammer's body was surrounded by lightning. Hao Lei Chue, one of the top 10 weapons of Fenglei Beige. Its entire body was made of thunder stones. This hammer was temporarily lent to me by my master to train. I didn't expect it to be used against you. Hong Chen held the Hao Lei Chue in his hand and stared at Han Yu with incomparable seriousness. The iron hammer in his hand waved casually twice and directly caused cracks to appear in the void. Hong Chen is really terrifying. I'm afraid that even if we old fellows were to take action, it would take some effort to defeat him. Looking at Hong Chen, who was covered in snake-shaped lightning bolts, and feeling the terrifying power, the faces of the Han family members changed. Even Han Chi, who had always been as calm as Mount Tai, showed a trace of worry in his eyes after Hong Chen used Thunder God's Descent. As for Han Yu, she was still as calm as before. There were no fluctuations in her emotions. It seems that I have underestimated this girl from the Han family. The gray-robed old man beside Hong Li opened his eyes once again. He glanced at Han Yu before continuing. However, Hong Chen has already displayed the Thunder God's Descent. Coupled with his Qi method, Do technique, and Hao Lei Chue, the battle should be over. Thousand-shattering lightning hammer. There was no longer any pity in Hong Chen's eyes. With a cold shout, he executed the lightning haste and his body turned into a bolt of lightning. He crossed 1,000 meters and appeared above Han Yu's head. Hong Chen smashed his hammer down. Dazzling lightning bolts gushed out from the hammer's surface like a flood breaking through a dam. Looking at this scene from afar, it was as if Hong Chen was holding a huge bolt of lightning high up in the air, and his momentum was terrifying. Han Yu raised her head and looked at the terrifying lightning that covered the sky. She raised her right hand, and a black sledgehammer appeared in her hand. Compared to Hao Lei Chue, the sledgehammer in Han Yu's hand had more strange patterns. It was also bigger in size. In the next moment, Han Yu swung her sledgehammer and met the attack head-on. Boom! The two sledgehammers collided. There was an earth-shattering sound. At first, Hao Lei Chue's sledgehammer was filled with tens of thousands of lightning bolts and its momentum was terrifying. However, when it came into contact with Han Yu's sledgehammer, the dense lightning bolts disappeared instantly. To be more precise, all the lightning bolts were transferred to the sledgehammer in Han Yu's hand. In the blink of an eye, Hao Lei Chue was no different from a hammer. What's going on? Seeing this strange scene, Hong Chen's expression changed abruptly. After coming to his senses, he hurriedly channeled all the fighting energy in his body into Hao Leichue. With the infusion of Hong Chen's energy, lightning bolts appeared around Hao Leichue again. However, it was not long before all the lightning bolts were transferred to the sledgehammer in Han Yu's hand again. Rumble. Before Hong Chen could understand, the sledgehammer in Han Yu's hand released a bolt of lightning that shot into the sky. Then, rolling lightning bolts fell from the sky and connected with the sledgehammer in Han Yu's hand. It's over. Accompanied by the sound of cold in the forest, Han Yu waved the sledgehammer in her hand again. Under the guidance of the sledgehammer, the lightning bolts fell from the sky and blasted toward Hong Chen. The sky was filled with lightning bolts. A ferocious lightning beast could be vaguely seen pouncing toward Hong Chen. Bang! There was another loud bang. Under countless horrified gazes, a figure in the sky crashed to the ground like a wild goose with broken wings. Chun'er. At the instant Hong Chen was defeated, Hong Li's figure flashed past the spectating area, and he rushed over to catch Hong Chen before he smashed onto the ground. Poochie. Hong Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. His pale face was devoid of color, and his breath was extremely weak. His right hand was still tightly holding onto Hao Leichue. However, Hao Leichue was now covered with cracks and could completely shatter at any time. Chun'er, don't speak. Father will heal you first. Seeing Hong Chen's lips twitch, Hong Li hurriedly took out some elixirs from his storage ring and fed them to Hong Chen. At the same time, he continuously channeled his fighting energy into the latter's body. Hong Chen lost. In the spectator stands, the people who witnessed this result all had their mouths wide open and were flabbergasted. This result was beyond their expectations. From the beginning to the end, they could not understand how Han Yu, who was only a 9 stars Do Ling 3 days ago, could suddenly become a 7 stars Do Huang. The Hong family clenched their fists tightly, their faces filled with anger. The Han family was the exact opposite. Their faces were filled with joy as they laughed loudly. Their laughter was filled with pride. As the head of the family, Han Qi immediately cast a grateful gaze toward Chu Bei. The reason they were able to win this battle was all thanks to him. Remember what you said? You are not allowed to offend the Han family for 10 years. Han Yu descended from the sky and looked at Hong Li expressionlessly. Her voice was cold. Kid, you're a little too vicious. After checking Hong Chen's injuries, Hong Li looked at Han Yu with eyes filled with killing intent. Meeting Hong Li's gaze, Han Yu did not show the slightest trace of fear on her face. She indifferently replied, "There are always deaths and injuries in a battle. If I did not receive Hong Chen's hammer, I'm afraid that my ending would not be any better than his. Isn't that right, Uncle Hong? If I don't kill you, the hatred in my heart will not disappear." Hong Li once again looked at the dying Hong Chen. He raised his right hand and fiercely slapped toward Han Yu. Hong Li, do you still want to interfere in the matters of the younger generation? Seeing Hong Li attack Han Yu, Han Qi's face suddenly sank. In an instant, he appeared in front of Han Yu. At the same time, he clenched his right fist and met Hong Li's palm. Bang! A fist and a palm collided. Two terrifying forces intertwined. Under the aftermath of the collision, a deep ravine appeared on the fighting stage. Immediately after, Hong Li was shaken and was forced to retreat. With your strength, how is this possible? Hong Li steadied his body and looked at the motionless Han Qi with a face full of astonishment. He was a 3-star dozong while Han Qi was a 2-star dozong. However, in the exchange just now, the fluctuation of his opponent's aura was above his. On the path of cultivation, one can't be stagnant. Han Qi let out a cold laugh. The aura of a 5-star dozong exploded. First it was Han Yu, and now it's you. How can there be such a coincidence? Hong Li's gaze swept across Han Qi and Han Yu. He knew that there was definitely something fishy about the increase in their cultivation. Just as the atmosphere on the fighting stage was stagnant, a gray-robed elder appeared beside Hong Li, Elder Shan. Hong Li immediately bowed respectfully to the gray-robed elder. Someone from the Wind Thunder Pavilion? May I know your name? Han Qi glanced at the badge on the gray-robed elder's chest. He had noticed him when he entered the arena. Xin Yun. The gray-robed elder's tone was calm. So it's Elder Yun of the wind, cloud, thunder, and lightning elders of the North Pavilion. Han Chi clasped his fist. I didn't expect you to know so much about Fenglai Beige. Shun Yun glanced at Han Chi and continued. I don't care about the matters between your two clans, but how Lei Chue, who is in her hands, must give me an explanation. At this point, Shun Yun had already reached out and pointed at the strange hammer in Han Yu's hand. How Lei Chue? Han Yu frowned and said, Elder Yun, I'm afraid you've made a mistake. Your Fenglai Beige's How Lei Chue is in Hong Chen's hands. I'm afraid you don't know, but 100 years ago, my Fenglai Beige was robbed by thieves, and one of the stolen treasures was How Lei Chue. Shin Yun's voice was loud and clear, and then he pointed at the sledgehammer that was covered in cracks in Hong Chen's hand. The sledgehammer in his hand is only a replica, and the true mighty lightning hammer is the one in your hand. Chen Yun's words stirred up a mighty uproar very quickly. No wonder Han Yu could defeat Hong Chun. So the one in his hand is the real How Lei Chue. But why would the real How Lei Chue be in the hands of the Han family? Could it be that the thief who snuck into the Wind Thunder Pavilion 100 years ago was a member of the Han family? Discussions broke out again in the spectator stands. Are you sure it's the How Lei Chue that was stolen from the Wind Thunder Pavilion? Han Yu stared at Shun Yun in astonishment. She had obtained this hammer from the level 8 Wheel of Fortune, and it could only be used for an hour. Han Yu couldn't help but look in Chu Bei's direction. Could it be that Boss Chu was that thief? Han Yu had this thought in her mind. Could it be that the founder of your Wind Thunder Pavilion was the Thunder God? At this moment, Chu Bei also came to the arena and said with a teasing tone, Thunder God? Shen Yun looked at Chu Bei and frowned. I've never heard of this person in the pavilion's records, let alone the founder of my Wind Thunder Pavilion. Then why did Thor's hammer change its name to How Lei Chue? Chu Bei's eyes narrowed, and he snorted coldly. Boss Chu, does that mean this isn't How Lei Chue? Han Yu asked tentatively. Of course not. Chu Bei glanced at Han Yu. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would steal? No, 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 of course you wouldn't do it. Han Yu panicked when she heard Chu Bei's question. Who is he? Why haven't I seen him before? But looking at the Han family, they seem to be very respectful to him. He must have a powerful background. Can't you guys tell? The hammer in Han Yu's hand was given to her by him. In the spectator stands, everyone's gazes once again focused on Chu Bei's body with a swoosh as they started to discuss. What Thunder God? I don't care. Shun Yun's gaze also landed on Chu Bei. Who are you? Do you think in the entire Dochi continent, other than my Wind Thunder Pavilion, who else would be able to create this hammer that contains the power of thunder and lightning? Wind Thunder Pavilion? Chu Bei put his hands behind his back and sneered. That's nothing. Chu Bei's words were like a bolt from the blue as they floated in the air. What is this guy's background? Isn't he too arrogant? He actually doesn't put the Wind Thunder Pavilion in his eyes. I'm afraid that there aren't many forces in Zhongzhou that would dare to criticize the Wind Thunder Pavilion like this. Trouble comes from careless talk. He's inviting a fatal disaster. If the forces behind him knew what he said, I'm afraid they wouldn't dare to let him out. In the spectator seats, everyone's expression changed when they heard Chu Bei say, that's nothing. Chapter 111. On the stage, when Han Chi and Han Yu heard Chu Bei's words, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Although the Han family had enough authority and status in Tianbei City, compared to the Wind Thunder Pavilion, the difference was like heaven and earth. Not only was the latter the overlord of the northern region of the Central Province, but it was also one of the top forces in the Central Province. After all, the reputation of the One Palace, One Pagoda, Two Sects, and Three Valleys Square Pavilion was not just for show. At the side, Hong Li was startled at first, but when he reacted, the corners of his mouth rose into a sinister smile. Previously, when Shun Yun said that he wouldn't interfere in the matters between the two families, he was still dissatisfied. But now, Chu Bei's words had undoubtedly angered Shin Yun, and he was also a guest of the Han family. This anger could very well implicate the entire Han family. This was indeed the case. The moment Chu Bei's voice fell, Chun Yun's terrifying aura began to spread out. You dare to insult my wind thunder pavilion? Shin Yun's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, perhaps because he wasn't clear about Chu Bei's background, Shin Yun didn't immediately make a move. Instead, a terrifying pressure enveloped Chu Bei. You're saying that this Hao Lei Chue is an imitation? But do you think they're similar? Chu Bei naturally didn't care about Shin Yun's pressure. With a wave of his hand, he placed the cracked Hao Lei Chue and Thor's hammer together in Hong Chen's hands. Then, he looked at Shun Yun with a playful expression. Not only were the two different sizes, but they were also made of different materials. The patterns engraved on them were also completely different. The Hao Lei Chue has been lost for a long time. At that time, the senior in the pavilion who made this imitation only made it based on his memory. Naturally, there would be differences. At this point, Shun Yun's tone suddenly changed. Although its shape has changed, its essence is still there. It contains a large amount of lightning energy. You all saw it before. Hearing Shen Yun's words and seeing his incomparably serious expression, Chu Bei's mouth twitched. This F*King serious nonsense, and his face didn't even turn red. Is this the style of your Wind Thunder Pavilion? I'm really impressed. I'm far from it. Chu Bei smiled and could not help but give Chen Yun a thumbs up. If you fancy him, then so be it. Why do you have to find a pretense to put yourself on the moral high ground and act sanctimonious? Hearing this, Shun Yun's face became even more gloomy. All of this was indeed a lie he had made up. When he saw Han Yu use the big hammer to restrain Hao Lei Chue, he had already decided that no matter what method he used, he had to obtain it. Of course, his biggest reliance was the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Although the Han family had some status in Tianbei City, in front of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, it was nothing. This old man is too lazy to talk nonsense with you. I'll give you two choices now. 1. Hand over Hao Lei Chue and follow me back to Fenglei Beige. The North Pavilion Master will deal with you. 2. This old man will kill you on the spot and take Hao Lei Chue away. Shin Yun was already impatient and didn't want to talk to Chu Bei anymore. Hearing Shun Yun's words, Hong Li's smile deepened. Han Chi and the rest of the Han family's faces became ugly. Chu Bei was involved in this trouble because of them. If he was really taken away by the Wind Thunder Pavilion, then the Han family would have an undeniable responsibility. As for the other people in the audience, they were more like watching a show. Old Shin, this hammer came from Boss Chu. I'm afraid there's some misunderstanding. Why don't you first return to Fenglei Beige and confirm whether this hammer belongs to the stolen Hao Lei Chue? Han Chi stepped forward and said, Who do you think you are? Do I need you to interfere with the Wind Thunder Pavilion's matters? Shin Yun coldly looked at Han Chi. If you don't want to involve the Han family, then stay on the side and shut up. Hearing Shin Yun's reprimand, Han Chi couldn't help but clench his fists. But very quickly, the anger in his eyes was replaced by helplessness. He was the head of the Han family. Every word and action of his represented the Han family. He could be fearless of Shun Yun, but he couldn't ignore the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Head of the Han family, this indeed has nothing to do with you. Chu Bei lightly patted Han Chi's shoulder, then his eyes immediately fell back on Shun Yun. No one can take away my things, and I'm not interested in the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Chu Bei straightened his clothes, his voice especially calm. It seems you've chosen the second option. Shin Yun's eyes narrowed, and his voice suddenly became low. You don't have the qualifications to make me choose. Facing Shin Yun's gloomy and cold gaze, Chu Bei still had a calm and collected appearance. You're courting death. Looking at Chu Bei's playful expression, Shun Yun's face became completely gloomy. As his cold voice fell, dense lightning suddenly surged out of his body. The energy fluctuations in these lightning bolts were hundreds of times stronger than that of Hong Qian. Hong Li carried the heavily injured Hong Qian in his arms at the first possible moment and flew out of the combat arena as he was deeply afraid of being affected. Han Chi and Han Yu looked at each other and also flew to the spectator area. If it was only Shin Yun, they wouldn't be worried about Chu Bei. As Shen Yun's aura rose, large cracks began to appear on the hard arena with him as the center. Densely packed lightning bolts danced in the air like dragons and snakes intertwining, crackling non-stop. Thunder Whip. Looking at the lightning bolts that couldn't get close to Chu Bei, Shen Yun's eyes flashed coldly. He clenched his hand, and lightning flashed, forming a thunder mace. Then, holding the thunder mace, he swept it towards Chu Bei. Wherever the thunder mace passed, the void distorted, and python-shaped lightning bolts loomed in the air with great momentum. Chu Bei calmly looked at Shen Yun, who was attacking him. He did not care about the lightning truncheon that carried a terrifying might. Just as the thunder mace was about to hit Chu Bei, the Thor's hammer in Chu Bei's hand suddenly released a dazzling lightning bolt. In the next moment, Chu Bei lightly threw out Thor's hammer. The moment Thor's hammer left his hand, its speed increased dramatically. In a flash, it had already collided with Shen Yun's thunder mace. A dragon roar sounded. On Thor's hammer, a huge brontosaurus was circling, swallowing and spitting out terrifying ball-shaped lightning bolts. In front of the brontosaurus, the python-shaped lightning bolts circling around the thunder mace seemed much more inferior. As the brontosaurus opened its mouth, it directly swallowed the python-shaped lightning bolts and the thunder mace. Then, with a swing of its tail, it slammed towards Shen Yun. Bang! With a muffled sound, an old figure flew out in a sorry state. Shen Yun, who had suffered a heavy blow, no longer had a superior attitude. His face was full of shock. The elder of the Wind Thunder Pavilion is injured. Who the hell is that guy? He's so strong. I'm afraid we'll have to ask the Han family. No wonder he's not afraid of Shen Yun. Looking at the pale face of Shen Yun, who still had blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, the spectators were shocked. The Hong family, including Hong Li, had a look of disbelief on their faces. They never thought that the guest of the Han family would be this strong. As for Han Chi and Han Yu and the others, they didn't have much of a reaction. This result was within their expectations. After all, when they were at Canaan College, Han Yu had personally witnessed Chu Bei easily kill a 9-stars dozong, not to mention a 5-stars dozong from Fenglai Beige. In the sky above the stage, Chu Bei waved his hand, and Thor's hammer flew back into his hand. When Chu Bei swung Thor's hammer again, the size of the hovering brontosaurus increased again, and a dragon's roar resounded through the sky. Looking at the huge mouth of the brontosaurus, Shen Yun quickly regained his senses. After a moment of hesitation, he turned around. Then, he used all his strength to execute the 3,000 lightning haste and dashed away, leaving behind afterimages. What? You want to leave? Seeing Shen Yun trying to escape, Chu Bei let out a cold laugh. The Thor's hammer in his hand casually swung in the air. In the next moment, the empty space 10,000 feet away suddenly distorted, and a solid spatial wall formed. Bang! At this moment, a figure crashed into the spatial wall that was covered with lightning. The strong rebound and the violent lightning energy caused Shen Yun to spit out a mouthful of blood. His face became even paler, and his breath became extremely weak. I'm Fenglai Beige's fourth elders. Shen Yun endured the pain and looked at Chu Bei again. Before he could finish his threatening words, the huge brontosaurus arrived in the blink of an eye. Boom! The dragon's roar, the sound of thunder, and the shrill scream intertwined, and finally turned into an earth-shattering explosion. After a long time, the sound of the explosion faded away. In the spectator stand, countless eyes stared at the center of the explosion, which had already turned into nothingness. A deathly silence. Retreat. Hong Li was the first to regain his senses. After looking at Chu Bei in the sky with fear, he hurriedly ordered the Hong family behind him. Brother Hong, take care. I won't send you off. Han Chi waved at the Han family members who were fleeing in panic. His words were filled with pride. Chu Bei glanced at the retreating Hong family army and ignored them, allowing them to leave. As the battle ended, the spectators in the spectator stand also left amidst intense discussions. Boss Chu, you killed Shen Yun in front of so many people. Fenglai Beige will probably find out about this very soon. Han Chi led the Han family members in front of Chu Bei. There was a hint of worry in his eyes. Overlords like them care a lot about their reputation. The possibility of them attacking our Han family is not high. But you, on the other hand, will probably be on their must-kill list. At this point, Han Chi took out a storage ring. Boss Chu, there's some money here. Why don't you leave immediately? Chu Bei glanced at the storage ring in front of him, smiled, and pushed it back. You should keep this money and continue to spin. I've said before that Fenglai Beige is nothing. You don't need to worry about me. After saying this with a smile, Chu Bei calmly walked toward the little doctor and Qing Lin. Chifeng Mountain was located to the east of Tianbei City. The mountain was not big, but it was famous in the north of Zhengzhou and even the entire Zhengzhou. It was not because there were rumors of a phoenix descending on the mountain, but because it was the place where Fenglai Beige stood. The Wind Thunder Pavilion was divided into 4 pavilions. The East Pavilion was the main pavilion, while the South, West, and North Pavilion were secondary. The East Pavilion was the most powerful, followed by the South, West, and North Pavilion. Even if the 4 pavilions were not together, any one of them could be considered a first-rate force in Zhengzhou. When the 4 pavilions were combined, they would be a giant in the north of Zhengzhou, a true first-rate force. From afar, the peak of Chifeng Mountain looked as if it had been split in half by a giant axe. Many buildings were hidden in the lush greenery. The most eye-catching building was the Silver Tower at the top of the mountain. The North Thunder Tower was Fenglai Beige's holy land for cultivation. Only the disciples of the inner pavilion could enter to cultivate. At this moment, at the highest level of the tower, several people were sitting in their seats and looking at the main seat. Shun Yun's spiritual thunder tablet has been broken. On the silver throne, a faint lightning glow spread in all directions along the chair. A human figure wearing silver robes was gently leaning against the back of the chair. A pair of silver-gray eyes slowly swept over the area below as a faint voice reverberated within the large hall. His voice was not loud, but it had a strong sense of oppression. No one dared to ignore it. What? Elder Yun's spiritual thunder tablet has been broken. What happened? In the north of Zhengzhou, who can kill him? As soon as the person on the silver throne finished speaking, he exclaimed in surprise. In particular, the 3 old men closest to the throne frowned. They looked at each other as if they could not believe this news. The 4 Pavilions conference is around the corner, and I can't leave. I'll leave the investigation of Xin Yun's death to you. The man on the silver throne tilted his head and looked at the 3 old men. You must settle this matter before the 4 Pavilions conference. I don't want to implicate the entire Wind Thunder Pavilion and become the laughingstock of the other 3 pavilions because of the death of my North Pavilion's elder. The 4 Pavilions conference here was naturally not the 4 pavilions of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, but the 4 pavilions of the 1 Tower, 1 Hall, 2 Sects, and 3 Valleys Square Pavilion. Yes, the 3 old men stood up and bowed to the man on the throne. With a move, they turned into lightning and disappeared. I just returned from outside the city and found that many strong people I have never seen before are heading toward Fengqi Mountain. What's going on? Wasn't it like this 3 days ago? This year's 4 Pavilions conference is held in the Wind Thunder Pavilion, and it's Fenglai Beige. Oh my God! When will the conference start? Doesn't that mean that we will be lucky enough to see the strong people of the other 3 pavilions? If my calculations aren't wrong, it should officially start the day after tomorrow. Moreover, the 4 Pavilion Masters will all be present at the 4 Pavilions Conference every year. On the main street of Tianbei City, a group of people gathered together. Just as the discussion about the 4 Pavilions Conference was intense, 3 rainbows streaked across the sky. Look at the sky. Who are those people? The 3 great elders of Fenglai Beige, Feng, Lei, and Dian. The guest elder of the Han family killed Elder Yun this morning. They must be here for that. Look at the direction they are heading. They are indeed heading toward the Han family. Let's go and take a look. There's a good show to watch. In the city, more and more cultivators noticed the 3 figures flying quickly in the sky. After being stunned for a moment, they all rushed toward the Han family. At the same time, in an exquisite room of the Han house, Chu Bei was feeling the strength in his body increase by another star. With the help of Han Chi, he had once again reached the limit of what he could sell today. His cultivation had also jumped from a 6-star dozong to a 7-star dozong. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud sound resounded in the sky above the Han house. Immediately, three powerful and majestic auras enveloped the entire Han house. When the three auras appeared, the Han house immediately fell into an uproar. The strong people of the Han family who were originally training raised their heads to look at the sky. When they saw the appearance of the three figures, their faces suddenly sank. They came so quickly. Han Chi slowly walked out of the hall and glanced at the three old men who were already standing in the sky above the Han house. He frowned and rose into the sky. Due to the large movement of the three elders of Fenglai Beige, the empty space around the Han house was quickly filled with people. There were even some Do Wongs who directly flew into the sky to watch from afar. Chapter 112. The three of you should be the Feng, Lei, and Dian elders of Fenglai Beige, right? Han Chi flew into the sky and cupped his hands towards the three elders. Where is the guy who killed Xinyun? One of the elders coldly glanced at Han Chi. It's not easy for your Han family to stand tall in Tianbei City for hundreds of years. It's best if you don't interfere in some matters. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the name of the Han family will disappear from Tianbei City. Hearing the elder's threatening words, Han Chi frowned and his face became gloomy. Han family head, it's best if you don't interfere in my matters. Just as Han Chi was about to say something, a voice with a hint of laughter drifted from the sky. Immediately after, Chu Bei stepped forward and appeared beside Han Chi. You're the one who killed Xinyun? The three elders' gazes focused on Chu Bei at the same time, their eyes filled with killing intent. You want to avenge him? Chu Bei put his hands behind his back and looked at the three elders with a mocking expression. Hearing this, the three elders' expressions changed. After checking Chu Bei's aura to no avail, they looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. In the next moment, the three elders shouted at the same time. As the shout fell, bright lightning surged out from their bodies. The lightning flashed and turned into a thunderbolt that shot into the sky. In an instant, the originally clear sky was filled with dark clouds. Following the three old men's complicated hand seals, countless bolts of lightning descended from the sky, densely packed like a prison, completely enveloping the space within a radius of 300 meters around Chu Bei. When the three elders finished forming the seal, the prison formed by the intertwining thunderbolts instantly grew several times larger. Its power was extremely terrifying. Looking at the three elders, each of their palms had a bolt of lightning that shot into the prison. It seemed to be the source of the prison's power. This is the 9 Heavenly Thunder Prison Formation, one of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's strongest killing formations. It requires 3 5-star Do Zongs and above to be used. In the sky, some of the Do Wongs with good eyesight who were hiding in the distance were stunned when they recognized the formation that the three elders had used. Han Chi's brows were tightly knit together. Even though he was a 4-star Do Zong, the energy fluctuation from the Lei Lao still caused his heart to palpitate. Involuntarily, when Han Chi looked at the calm Chu Bei, there was an additional trace of worry in his eyes. Ever since the three of us have become elders, we have never worked together to deal with a single person. The Do Zong, Chu Bei's Do Zong, Chu Bei's Lei Do Zong, Do Zong. The Do Zong Zong's Do Zong was Do Zong Zong, Do Do, Do Do Zong, Do Do Zong, Do's, Do Lei Do Do Do's. Rumble. With the blood essence of the three elders, the Lei Lao seemed to have undergone a qualitative change. The rolling thunderbolts in it all turned into the color of blood. In the deafening roar, the rolling thunderbolts evolved into a blood-colored giant axe. Countless lightning snakes were jumping around it. Die! As the three elders shouted, the blood-colored giant axe slashed at Chu Bei. At this moment, the three elders' faces were pale as if the strength in their bodies had been sucked out. Facing the blood-colored giant axe, Chu Bei's expression still did not change. With a wave of his hand, the high-speed spinning three-colored fire lotus met it. Boom! Under countless gazes, the blood-colored axe and the fire lotus collided with a bang. At this moment, except for the terrifying explosion when the two collided, the world was silent. At the place where the two collided, the dazzling energy light wave took away everyone's sight. As the explosion faded, the dazzling light faded. When everyone could see the scene of the battlefield again, the blood-colored giant axe had disappeared. Only Chu Bei, who had not changed his expression from the beginning to the end, and the three elders who were swallowed by the three-colored flame and could not even scream. In the sizzling sound of burning, under countless horrified gazes, the three elders were burned into nothingness by the flame. The world became increasingly deathly silent. Chu Bei ignored the surrounding spectators. After retrieving the three clusters of heavenly flames, he once again returned to the Han house. The three elders, Feng, Lei, and Dian, were also killed by him. In just one day, 4 elders of Fenglei Beige have died. What a great loss. Looking at the battlefield where Chu Bei was originally at, the crowd of spectators finally recovered after a long time. They faced each other. Chi Feng Mountain, North Lightning Tower. On the leader's seat, the silver-robed man was arranging the matters of the 4-pavilion meeting. Suddenly, 3 clear sounds were emitted from behind him. When he heard the clear sounds, the silver-robed man's face suddenly sunk. How is this possible? Elder Feng, Elder Lei, and Elder Dian are also dead. Was it also done by the fellow who killed Elder Yun? When the 3 elders attacked together, they could form the 9 heavenly lightning prison formation. Has that fellow already reached such a terrifying stage? Don't tell me that he is an elite Dozun. It was not just the silver-robed man in the leader's seat. The other people on the seats beside him also saw the 3 shattered soul tablets. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Clearly, they were unable to accept the fact that the 3 elders had died. Pavilion Chief, what should we do now?
An elder opened his mouth and asked.
Let's deal with the 4-pavilion meeting first. The silver-robed man clenched his fists tightly. He did his best to suppress the killing intent in his eyes. When the 3 elders of Feng, Lei, and Dian joined hands and formed the 9 heavenly lightning prison formation, even he could only fight them without being defeated. However, that person of unknown origin was able to kill the 3 elders of Feng, Lei, and Dian by himself. In other words, even if he personally went there, it was likely that he would not be able to kill the other party. His ending might even be the same as the 3 elders of Feng, Lei, and Dian. On the other side, Chu Bei had returned to his residence and was comfortably enjoying Qing Lin's massage while recalling the earlier battle. Currently, his cultivation was a 7-star Dozong. Using his own strength to activate the heavenly flame, his fighting strength was already equivalent to a peak Dozong. Ta-ta-ta. A wave of footsteps approached from afar. Han Qi and his 2 daughters walked into the house. You can say whatever you want to say. Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Han Qi and his 2 daughters who wanted to say something but were hesitating. Boss Chu, can you tell us what your cultivation is? Have you already broken through to the Dozun realm? Han Yu finally could not help but open her mouth and said, the Central Province 4-pavilion meeting is being held by the Wind Thunder Pavilion this time. The location has been set at the Chiefing Mountain where Fenglei Beige is located. Every year, the 4-pavilion chiefs will be present at the 4-pavilion meeting. I think that this time will be no exception. It is rumored that the 4-pavilion chiefs are all at the Dozun realm. You have killed the 4 great elders of Fenglei Beige. If the Dozun of the Wind Thunder Pavilion finds out about this matter, he will definitely not let it go. I am worried that you... Hearing this, Chu Bei already understood Han Yu's meaning. He waved his hand and interrupted her. Don't worry, they can't do anything to me. As for my cultivation, you will find out one day. When he killed Xinyun, Chu Bei already had a plan in mind. Although his current authority could only allow him to exchange for level 8 goods, when he obtained the Sea Heart Flame, the system rewarded him with the right to use level 9 goods. If it really came to a critical moment, he would use this privilege to get rid of all the hidden dangers at once. The system will activate the mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda for the first time for the host. This time, the 7th and 8th floors of the Opportunity Tower will be activated. The price of admission to the tower will be 5 million for the 7th floor and 10 million for the 8th floor. The willpower obtained from the Opportunity Tower will be returned to the host by half. The location of the Opportunity Tower will be randomly selected within a 300-mile radius from the host's current location. The Opportunity Tower is being activated. Progress, 1%. Han Chi shook his head and quickly told Chu Bei about the sudden appearance of the treasure in the Heaven Eye Mountain. A natural phenomenon? After hearing Han Chi's words, Chu Bei was stunned for a moment. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately checked the system interface. As expected, a small map appeared on the page of the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda. There was a red dot on the map, and the location marked by the red dot was the Heaven Eye Mountain Range. The red dot represented the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda. In other words, the treasure in the Heaven Eye Mountain Range that had caused a huge uproar today was the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda. Boss Chu, should we go and take a look? The Hong family has already gone there. Han Chi looked at Chu Bei and let him make the decision. Of course. Chu Bei replied without hesitation. After saying that, Chu Bei quickly left the house and flew in the direction of the Heaven Eye Mountain. Looking at the impatient Chu Bei, Han Chi and Han Yu looked at each other and quickly chased after him. The Heaven Eye Mountain. Although it was a mountain in name, it was actually a continuous mountain range that surrounded the northern and eastern regions of the central region. In the mountain range, there was no lack of level 7 and 8 magical beasts. There were even rumors that there were level 9 magical beasts in the deepest part of the mountain range. Because there were high-level magical beasts in the Heaven Eye Mountain Range, there were usually very few people. But today, there were many people moving around the outskirts of the mountain range. From time to time, one could see groups of 3 to 5 people flying in the same direction. In the distant sky, one could see Do Wongs and above flapping their Do Chi wings. Occasionally, one could even see Do Zongs flying in the air without using their Do Chi wings. At the same time, in the outskirts of the Heaven Eye Mountain, 100 kilometers away from Tianbei City, there was an inverted cone-shaped kernel. There was a huge, 7-colored spherical cover around the kernel. At this moment, with the call as the center, there were figures everywhere within a 3-kilometer radius. The auras of the leaders of these factions were becoming increasingly powerful from the outside to the inside. This was especially true for the leaders of the factions at the edge of the kernel. All of them were elite dozongs. Among the factions at the edge of the call, there were 4 factions that were especially special. These 4 factions occupied nearly 80% of the area. Everyone in the first faction was wearing silver robes. On the chest of their robes, there was a badge with a thunderbolt imprinted on it. The leader was Fei Tian, the pavilion chief of Fenglei Beige. The second faction also had a badge imprinted on the chest of their robes. However, it was an image of 3 swords stacked together. The leader was Jianheng, the deputy pavilion chief of Wanjian Pavilion. The third faction had a badge on the chest of their robes that was an image of rapid water flow. The leader was Yu Hong, the deputy pavilion chief of Huangquan Pavilion. The fourth faction had a badge on the chest of their robes that was an image of a round pill. The leader was Shi Bin, the deputy pavilion chief of Xingyun Gu. Other than the square pavilion, the other factions at the edge of the call were mostly the top factions in Tianbei City. For example, the Hong family. My Wind Thunder Pavilion was the first to discover the treasure. Aren't you being too unkind by doing this? Fei Tian's gaze swept across the deputy pavilion chiefs of the other 3 pavilions. His face was filled with displeasure. Brother Fei, what are you talking about? Since ancient times, the treasures of heaven and earth have always belonged to those who have the ability to obtain them. How can there be such a thing as first come, first served? Moreover, this treasure hasn't been completely born yet, Wanjian Pavilion Chief Jianheng said with a smile. If this treasure was born at Chifeng Mountain, our actions would indeed be against our morals. However, this is the Tianmu Mountain Range. It has nothing to do with you, Huangquan Pavilion Chief Yu Hong said in agreement. Let's wait and see what kind of treasure is here first, Xingyun Gu Sherbin said as he pointed at the 7-colored light film in front of him. When they arrived at the edge of the call, they immediately launched an attack on the 7-colored light film. However, with their strength as 8-star dozongs, they couldn't cause any damage to the 7-colored light film. Because of this, they determined that the treasure that was about to be born in the light film was extraordinary. That was why they had been waiting here. Whoosh! At this moment, Another figure flashed across the sky and landed at the back of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's faction. This is my Wind Thunder Pavilion's territory. If you have entered by mistake, leave immediately. A disciple at the back of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's territory heard the movement behind him. When he turned around and saw Chu Bei, he immediately ordered him to leave. If you don't leave, I won't be the one to take action. Seeing that Chu Bei had no intention of leaving, the disciple from the Wind Thunder Pavilion frowned. A ruthless expression surfaced in his eyes. You are seeking death. Seeing that Chu Bei was about to continue moving forward, the disciple let out a cold cry. A long sword appeared in his hand and pierced toward Chu Bei. However, before the long sword could cut Chu Bei, the disciple let out a muffled groan and was sent flying by an invisible energy. He violently smashed into the ground and stopped moving. What happened? Hearing the movement, an elder at the back of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's territory opened his mouth and asked, Elder Shui, he barged into our territory and killed Junior Mu. A disciple pointed at Chu Bei and immediately said. Shui Hai glanced at the corpse on the ground. When he looked at Chu Bei again, the aura of a 5-star Do Wang erupted. In the next moment, a purple-red long sword appeared in Shui Hai's hand. The long sword vibrated and a sharp sword aura traversed the air and swept toward Chu Bei. Chu Bei indifferently glanced at Shui Hai. Almost at the same time, he pointed his finger like a sword and shot out a sharp energy. Chila. With a buzzing sound, the sword aura was easily destroyed. Before Shui Feng could react, the energy that Chu Bei shot out had already pierced through his body, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Putong. Shui Feng loudly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Elder Shui is dead. Impossible. This is impossible. Elder Shui is a 5-star Do Wang. How could he die so easily? Who exactly is he? How dare he look down on our Wind Thunder Pavilion? Looking at Shui Feng's corpse on the ground, the expressions of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's disciples suddenly froze. After recovering from their daze, they all looked at Chu Bei in horror. Their elder had been killed right under their noses. Although most of the disciples of the Wind Lightning Pavilion already knew that the 4 great elders of the Northern Pavilion, Feng, Lei, Dian, and Yun, had been killed by a mysterious person, they naturally would not connect him to Chu Bei because they had never seen the appearance of the mysterious person. The huge commotion finally attracted the attention of a circle of experts at the edge of the Colonel, Brother Fei. There seems to be some trouble on your side, Wanjian Pavilion's Jianheng said with a smile. He extended his hand and pointed at the Wind Thunder Pavilion's disciples who were constantly moving away from Chu Bei. Fei Tian ignored Jianheng and focused his eyes on Chu Bei. He flipped his right palm, and a terrifying energy palm blasted toward Chu Bei. However, this energy palm was blocked by another invisible force when it was 1 meter away from Chu Bei, following which, it turned into a cluster of air and disappeared with a bang. Seeing this, Fei Tian frowned. Although he did not use his full strength in that palm, one would at least need to be a Do Zone to receive it unscathed. Not only Fei Tian, but Jianheng, Yu Hong, Sherbin, and the other 3 pavilion heads also revealed surprised expressions. Clearly, they did not expect Chu Bei to be able to resolve Fei Tian's palm. On the other hand, the other factions in Tian Bei City, including the Hong family, recognized Chu Bei at a glance. He actually came. He killed 2 people from the Wind Thunder Pavilion the moment he arrived. He really does not put the Wind Thunder Pavilion in his eyes. He killed the 3 elders of the Wind, Thunder, and Lightning Pavilion by himself. His strength is the reason for his arrogance. Looks like he has also come for the treasure that has yet to take shape in the light fill. The experts from the various factions in Tian Bei City looked at Chu Bei and began to discuss. So the person who killed Xinyun and the other 3 is you. Catching the information from the conversations in the air, Fei Tian once again looked at Chu Bei with eyes filled with killing intent. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.